could be with anyone, I could be with anyone. You're here with me, you're here with me.
Hey, what's going on, folks? How you doing? To my channel, we're asking about when you guys were coming on. When I told them that we were in talks to have you guys come on to do a live, they were very excited. So I'm happy that you're here, and I'm sure they're happy that you're here as well.
Nice.
So if we could get some, like, a matter of fact, let's get some hearts in the chat to celebrate the new arrival of the conversation. Just so everybody knows, this might be something that I actually start doing more regularly, because I kind of like the idea of talking to other creators about whether it's Sister Wives, 90 Day Fiance, or what is that other show? Love After Lockup, or whatever. Or just talking to them about their ideas and views of situations and relationships. So you guys are my first guest on this new show, and I'm very excited about it.
Awesome.
Excited to be here.
Thank you.
Yeah. You guys are the so if it works out, you guys will get the credit. If it doesn't work out, you guys will get the full blame.
That's the story of our life.
Like, speaking of polygamy, so why don't you give the audience a little bit of background so that they know, if they're not familiar with your work, who you are and how you tie in maybe to the show, or what your perspective is as far as the show, they get some kind of idea of what to expect.
Okay. Yeah. So we were both actually, I'll let Cory tell his story, but we were both born and raised in the AUB. My dad is the current leader, prophet, whatever you want to call him, of the AUB.
The big boss man?
Yeah, the big boss. And so I decided to do a podcast. I started a podcast about my life experiences about 1.5 years ago. And then I just had so many people asking me to comment on Sister Wives. And so I finally decided, one of the previews came out one time, and I was so livid about this preview about how Cody treated his wives. And so I decided to make a video, and it went viral. And so we just started talking about Sister Wives on top of what we were already doing. So yeah. So that's kind of how it came about. I was married a week after I turned 17 and had my first baby shortly thereafter. And right after I got married, my ex-husband started looking for new wives. So just figured there was a story to tell, and my kids had always asked me to talk about it. So just decided to start talking about it. Yeah. And then the first video I made about Sister Wives went viral, and then I started making a couple more went viral. So we just started talking about it. Yeah,
and I was born and raised in the AUB, grew up on the compound up in Montana, so I was a compound kid. My dad had 9 wives and 39 children, living in one great big house and a small little cabin next door. So it was a lot of kids and a lot of wives all in one area. So, and I knew some of the people growing up in the Sister Wives. Robin lived in Montana when we were younger. And I didn't know anything about Sister Wives. These guys were watching it, and I walked in kind of on the first episode or the first couple episodes. And I'm like, oh, this guy is in trouble. But yeah, I had, by the time I was an adult, I was invited to leave the community. So I left the community and went out into the world and worked, and have been away from the AUB longer than I was ever a part of it. So
Okay. And then you guys connected, I guess, after you had already left. You guys got together.
Yeah, we had barely become friends right before I left the AUB. We had barely gotten to know each other. We didn't know each other growing up. We were both born and raised in the AUB, both delivered by the same doctor. Everything. We just didn't ever know each other until just as I was leaving. So,
Wow.
Yeah. So we didn't. So we never connected. We became friends through my best friend,
and my brother.
So my best friend was married to his brother. So that's how we became friends.
Okay. Little love story in there. Cory, I got to tell you, I hear you tell your story about your dad having what 9 wives and 39. Yeah, 39 kids.
39 children, yep, and 9 wives and my dad. So, yeah, 49 people all living in the same house growing
I'll
up.
tell you what, with just 9 wives, 39 kids, forget about it. But 9 wives, I'd be in my car all the time just screaming my ass off.
Oh,
Yeah,
His dad was
hollering at
most
the
of the
sun.
time.
What am I doing with my life? What was I thinking? 9 wives, holy smokes. That's a lot of responsibility. That's a lot of responsibility.
yeah.
Um, no, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh no, that there were so many stories growing up that you didn't see on Sister Wives. The food fights, the women getting angry at each other over little things, and we had fights going on between the wives as kids. We were watching that like this was live.
They had their own reality TV
Yeah, we
show
had our own
daily.
reality TV show
Yeah,
up with that
yeah.
many women in the same house. So it was
Yeah, I'm sure it wasn't as much fun because you can't turn real life off. You know what I mean? And there are no commercial breaks when
Mhm.
it comes to real life. But one of the things that I noticed was kind of a popular thing, and I wanted to kind of get into it with you guys, if you don't mind. I noticed that in the last video you guys had talking about this most recent episode, you talked about this being Melanie specifically. You had mentioned about this being a woman's empowerment episode. Like you saw this as a woman's empowerment episode because we got to hear about Christine and Janelle's and as well as Mary's advancement and where they were after they left their marriage with Cody. Did you want to kind of go into that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing to me to see because this society is such a suppressive society for women. One thing I'll just address really quick. A dozen people have asked in the comments if my mom is here. She is. She would never miss this interview with James in a million years. She's sitting right here off to the side. Just
Hey,
so
mom.
yeah, so she is here. I'm seeing dozens of comments about it. So yeah, most women do not have the opportunity to do a lot of the things that these women have done. If they do, typically it's going to be an assignment from their husband to go perform some sort of task. But it's not their own self-directed achievements. And so that's
Right.
what I really appreciated about this episode is watching the self-directed achievements that Janelle is out there finding land. Mary's out there, building up her Airbnb and promoting her different businesses that she has. And Christine is now, going out there and purchasing property, something that she never would have had the self-esteem for. The self-esteem might have been there, but it would have been squashed by her husband. And so that's why I really do appreciate this episode so much because these women are now having opportunities that most women only ever dream of. Or in the AUB, women don't even dream of that because they don't even know it's possible.
Right. And well, you saw the question earlier where
Yeah.
all the kids, your dad's kids, Corey, like all 39 of them were his children.
No, 26 of those were his biological children.
Oh, okay.
And the rest were children that he brought or that the wives
Adoptive kids.
To the family.
brought in. But
Gotcha.
most of them, I didn't even know that they weren't biologically his children, especially the older ones. I just thought they were my older brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, it's a weird thing too because as we talk about like the blending of families, that's something that happens even in monogamous relationships. So it's not a completely foreign idea that this would happen, especially nowadays. Like if you're of a certain age, there is almost an expectation if you're single and you're dating that the person who you may meet very well may have children. Like that's just kind of coming along with the landscape. So it's not as like I think when it was first presented on Sister Wives and the way Cody had talked about it, oh, I saw Robin and she had children, and oh, I was disgusted by it because it was so nasty that she might have children. That's like for me when I first heard it. To be honest with you, I thought that was a maturity issue because at that time he was in his 40s. and you're dating people, who prospectively are in their 30s and 40s, they've had lives before they had you. So, to have somebody with children is just kind of, like I said, it's par for the course.
Mhm.
What do you guys like? Kind of to go off what you were talking about, Melanie, as far as the relationships that these ladies are able to explore, like the lives that they're able to lead. One of the things that I've always said is that I think that the ladies should be celebrated for making the decision to leave, because this is a leap of faith for them to leave these types of homes or these types of relationships and go out and explore the world on their own, on their own 2 feet. But at the same time, I always want to kind of cautionary remember that there are people who have to make the same decisions, but when they make those decisions, they don't necessarily have property, they don't have homes to
Yeah.
go to, and they don't have anything in their name. And then when we talk about like the inherent oppression or the inherent control within the institution of marriage, whether it's polygamy or even some polygamous relationships, I'll say it that way, where it may be financially abusive, or even monogamous relationships where it may be financially abusive. That is a source of control.
Right.
If you're sitting in the house and you don't have education, you don't have employment, you don't have a source of income, you don't have property in your name, and you're sitting there with kids, and this may be a relationship that's not fulfilling you, and you have to make the decision on leaving, you're really that's a hard choice. That's a very hard choice.
Yeah. When I left my first husband, I was 25 years old. I had a
Mhm.
1-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 7-year-old, and I did not
Okay.
graduate high school. I had no
Wow.
idea how I was going to support these children. My senior year of high school, I had a baby because I
Mm.
got married a week after I turned 17. And so
Wow.
I didn't have education. I didn't have employment. I hadn't worked most of the time we were married. I was a stay-home mom because I didn't have any education. It wasn't financially even workable for me to work because I'd be very minimal wage, if even that. And so, when I left that first marriage, I was terrified because
Right.
I did not have any idea how I was going to take care of 3 little babies. And
Mm.
how was I going to make that happen? And the first thing I did, but I was so uncomfortable where I was that leaving was the only other choice at that point, because I could not stay in this marriage anymore. I couldn't stay in the religion anymore either. And so, it was one of the scariest things it was like stepping off a cliff and having no idea where the ground was.
Right.
And the
Right.
first thing I did was go get my high school diploma. And that took me a couple of months to go do that. And then I just started going from there. I started looking for companies that would offer single moms opportunities in
Mhm.
education. And so Discover Card had an opportunity there where they were educating single moms that had a delayed high school graduation like I did. So it was one of the scariest things. I didn't have a TV show to fall back on. I didn't have
Right.
the internet
Right.
wasn't even a thing back then. And so, or it barely was. Yeah, it had just started. Yeah. So when Cory and I got together, I had 3 small children.
Right.
And so he didn't have any children.
Okay.
So he instantly became a dad real quick. So
Right. Right. So you have any thoughts on that, Cory? As far as being like the stepping in and being that man, you know what I mean?
Well, just I had watched my dad do that also, and I
Okay.
enjoyed that we did blend the whole family. I didn't know that I had brothers, my older brothers and sisters, that they weren't biologically related to me. So
Okay.
they were just brothers and sisters. And so, yeah, I came in. The kids were amazing. So I was lucky because I got to know them probably 4 or 5 years before I was just friends with the family. And the kids were amazing. And it was difficult the first year, but then we built our own home together and everything just blended. And then we had our first daughter, and that just solidified. Everybody was like, okay, he's a decent guy. We'll let him hang around. So
He's all right. Yeah. Well, you know what I like though, and this is one of the things that I think really touches a lot of people, especially when we talk on the channel. We refer to the Mary, Christine, and Janelle as the OG3. I don't know if you guys are
Yep.
familiar with that term, but that's one of the things that I'd always said about the OG3, because when Robin came into the family, and this isn't necessarily taking a shot at Robin per se, but just in my experience, there will be people who will be involved in relationships, and they'll have the foundational mate that they're involved with. And in this case, you have three foundational mates that you're involved with who help you to build. So they're the builders. They're the ones who are helping you, get your stuff right. They're the ones that are helping you with your career, helping you move forward, helping you become the person that you need to be moving on so you can take care of your family. Then, of course, at some point, you may get the crazy idea that you can just swap people out. So you go for the younger, new, fancier model of what you think is the same thing. But in reality, what you could wind up with is not somebody who is a builder, somebody who's going to contribute to your life, but you end up with somebody who's going to end up taking from you. So in that relationship, you wind up giving them more than you're receiving, and you just always find yourself on the wrong end of the giving trick. So I think that's an interesting thing, because when I listen to your story, I'm listening to how you guys came together, and you were at a point where you were both actively trying to build something together. You're trying to build a life together.
Yeah.
And so I don't hear the remnants of that type of lifestyle. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. No, we had to make some pretty promises to each other that polygamy would never be in our future. So.
Right.
And I was lucky because I got a piece of paper that said it would never be in my future. So
Cory
I was communicated from their community. So yeah. And here's the thing. I was a small child from my birth till 18. I lived polygamy. I was just a child within it with 9 women in the same house. I was like, there's no way I'm going to live this. This is too miserable. So
right.
I made a decision very young that when I got married, I was going to marry one woman. I did not want to have to deal with polygamy at all. So I lived it as a kid. I was done. So
all the throes and consequences of having, and to be honest with you, in fairness, is like, I could just dismiss it as, oh, you're a man trying to deal with 9 women, but it's just a lot of people and a lot of additional personalities that you have to manage. And all these relationships have to be managed, and they have to be maintained. And I think that's one of the big things that as we watch this one, because obviously Cody is small potatoes compared to your dad, Cory. I'm not even going, no shade on anybody. I'm just saying, like, he 3 wives. What?
Yeah.
18 children, you ain't doing nothing, But it's just like, when you consider like how much time, in order for you to truly be a part of, like, especially with kids, in order for you to actively be a part of their lives and be a present parent, it's not easy to do when you have more kids than a football team.
Right.
It's just hard, like hard if not impossible. Like, you doubling and tripling up. So when you're having a conversation, like, all right, which ones are messing up in school? Come on, guys, we're gonna sit in the corner. We're just gonna do the one lecture for all 3 of you.
Yeah.
And then I'll go into the other stuff, So that could be a little different.
I don't know if you know, when Cody first married Mary, they actually spent a portion of their honeymoon at Cory's house, so that Cody could learn from Cory's parents how they ran their family.
And I wasn't there, but my sisters are the ones that were telling us the stories about our family would be on best behavior, kind of like on TLC when they were coming in to see how it was done.
Yeah.
And then once the Browns left or whoever was coming into
then
our
the fight
family,
started.
then the cameras were off and they could misbehave again. So
So it was a lot of the when the cameras left and the people left, all of a sudden, now what was that you said about?
Exactly.
You talking slick.
Yeah, I don't know how Cory's dad did it with 9 all at this. My dad's had 8, but not all at the same time. And we have we have a lot more than 34, but 34 children is how many I grew up with. And then there is a lot more than that. They're married after I already grew up, and so I didn't know any of their children. So yeah, I don't know how Cory's dad did it
There
all
were-
at one time.
Yeah, there were only a
Hmm.
few men up there that had all of their wives in the same house. Most of them would build multiple houses, maybe on the same
Right.
property,
Yeah.
kind of like their Vegas experience where the houses were close. But my dad chose to do one huge house and have all the wives in there. I don't think he was thinking he'd get 9. I think he set it up so that he would have room for 5 or 6 wives. And he eventually had 7 wives in the main house and 2 over in the smaller house. So
Wow. So he was treating them like potato chips. He's like, once you pop, you can't stop. You know,
yeah.
That's
just kept
awesome.
pulling them in. I can't stop myself. You know. But well, actually, because that kind of gets into the thing about Cory, like not necessarily Cory. That gets into the whole thing with Cody and the idea of the one house. So it kind of begs the question because when he talks about, oh, my whole life I always dreamed of having one house with my family, is he talking about your family? Like, is this something that he borrowed from you guys?
Yeah, because at the very beginning of the show, the 3 original wives were all in one house. So that's what
Right.
he had kind of created already. And then when Robin came in and they dispersed, went down, then they had the multiple houses. And I think there's a comfort for the women to have your own space, your own place. You're not on top of each other. And so when he's like, hey, we're going to do the one big house again, they were like, nope. We've lived it that way. We're going to do it this
Right.
way
Yeah.
now. So
Yeah. Well, because I had a weird theory. You can tell me if there's anything to it. Here's my weird theory on that scenario. It strikes me that when they had the one house in Utah, he's courting Robin. He's driving 5 hours away to go hang out with Robin, and then they're courting because of the TLC contract. They're going to get married, and they decide to move her down to Lehigh, and she lives around. They rent her place around the corner, and at some point it occurs to me that while she's living around the corner, and we talk about like terms like jealousy, which well, I guess we'll talk about in a little bit. But when we talk about like things like jealousy, Robin has to be aware that when Cody is spending the night with Christine, Mary, or Janelle, one of the OG3, he's actually spending all the wives have access to him because he's under one roof. And that could be a source of jealousy. And then when we talk about her wanting to move to Vegas, all of a sudden it just so happens that when they move to Vegas, she happens to be living close to her mom, and then she also happens to be pregnant. So, that's a little, weird thing, coincidence for me. But it also kind of strikes me that if Cody wanted to spend more time with Robin at Robin's place, he would need to separate everybody so that way they can't keep track of where he is, because that's a big thing. If you're all living in the same house, where's Cody at? He ain't downstairs with me. Where he up here? And so you're able to put hands on him and where he is. Whereas when they move out to Las Vegas, they're spread out all over Vegas. And if the wives aren't talking, which is a big thing too, we can talk about triangulation. You get the wives arguing and fussing and fighting, and you can play in the gray areas of that triangulation, and nobody is answering any questions about what your whereabouts. Oh, I was over with Janelle. And Mary's not talking to Janelle. Or you say you're over at Christine's, and Christine is, she's unhappy with Mary, and none of them are really talking, and you can hide and you can spend more time.
yeah,
Is there any possibility that's
that is
remotely?
absolute.
You nailed it exactly.
Nailed it. That's exactly,
That's exactly what happens.
what happens. So
My mom's over here shaking her head. That's exactly what happens.
Yep, if the wives aren't talking and keeping you in line, and if you can make sure that they're not talking because they don't like each other, then yeah, you have a little bit more freedom, I think. So
Right.
to be able to go where you want and do what you to do what you want. So, and then you can say, oh no, I was making my rounds properly. So
Yeah. No.
Like, I have
yeah.
a question. Do you guys find, because one of the weird, more frustrating things about some of the things that I see on Sister Wives is when Cody will be involved with these arguments with the wives or disagreements with the wives or kids. And he never flat out says, I'm having a disagreement with my kids or my wives because of something between us. It's always a third party who's involved. Like, for instance, he's having a disagreement with his kids. Oh, they're mad at me because I don't love their mother. So technically, it's their mom's fault. Or they don't like Robin. So technically, I'm not having a disagreement with my kids. They just don't like my wife. And because I'm protecting her, I don't get along with them. Or when, the wives, the same thing. Do you guys find that that's something that's commonplace where the men don't take, somehow they shield themselves from any true responsibility when it comes to like the disagreements?
Yes. And I was my dad's favorite child to blame for a lot of
Uh,
stuff. And he would say, um, you know, there's a theory out there, the big love was based on my dad and his family, right?
okay.
And so Nikki would be based on one of my dad's wives. Well, we're all watching it, and I'm like, and my dad says, yeah, look, she's just like this wife. And I'm like, oh my gosh, yeah, she is. Well, what does my dad say? He goes to that wife and says, Melanie says you're just like da da da. So I took the fall for a lot of stuff like that. My dad would, because I'm one of the oldest. And
Right.
so I have two older siblings, but their mom left when we were really young. And so I was the oldest for a long time. And so I was the one he would blame for everything. He would say, oh, well, Melanie said this. Oh, well, Melanie said that. So that he didn't
Right.
actually have to take actual ownership over any of the arguments that he was having amongst himself or the other wives. So,
Wow.
yeah, it was
Wow.
exhausting. And I didn't understand that dynamic growing up. And I felt very victimized by it because I was like, what the hell, Dad? Why are you throwing me under this bus? I was just in the room. I was just breathing the same air. I didn't even say anything. And yet I would take the fall for that so often. And now that I'm older and I've stepped out of it a little bit more, I can see it for what it is. But when you're the child taking that blame, which I feel like I took that blame a lot. And then he had one or two wives that he would love to throw under the bus all the time. Everything was always their fault. Cory looks at my mom. And so, yeah, because
Your mom raised a hand.
that was true too, because my dad would say, this wife and her girls, and he would put the blame on all of us. And so it's exhausting to live with, especially when you are not an active participant in that conversation. And then all of a sudden you take the blame and you're like, where did that just came out of left field? Where'd that just come from? So yeah.
Right.
And I've said this on numerous lives that we've done, is that these men take zero accountability for anything that they do ever. They're the best deflectors you have ever seen. They project and deflect all the time. Everything is someone else's fault and everything is never my fault. So.
Okay. And do you feel that, do you guys feel that part of the reason why they may do that is this just them refusing to take blame, or do you think it's more complicated, just in the sense that maybe it's their way of maintaining what they feel is their position as far as leadership? Like, leadership can never have fault, or it can never be wrong. So I don't ever want to be in a situation where somebody, remember that time you made that mistake? So I never want to be in that position. So I'll always find somebody else to take the fall for anything that I want to do. So, like you said, if I want to talk crap about one of my wives, I pull up Melanie. Hey, Mel, what do you think about so and so? And you say, I don't know. And then I just go back and be like, yeah, she had a whole bunch of stuff. And I just rattle off all the things that I'm thinking about.
Yeah.
Like he lived it.
Yeah. My mom said, you must have been in the room when that happened. It happens all the time. Yes, that's exactly what happens. And then they can project whatever they need to whenever they need to. But I think it is very much a leadership thing. And honestly, they rotate homes. And so they never really have to be accountable about anything that they do, because something falls apart in one woman's home with her children. And then it's like, oh, well, I'll come back in 4 days and deal with that. Well, life's moved on in 4 days. They don't always have, now whatever conflict has happened has been resolved amongst the mother and the children. And then the father never actually has to be accountable for anything that he does, ever. What were you going to say?
Well, they are the priesthood leaders. They are supposed to be guiding the whole family. And if there's disruption, it's not going to be on his shoulder. He's guiding the family towards heaven or the celestial kingdom. And the wives need to get in line behind him, listen to him, because he's guiding them and leading them forward. And if they're having arguments with each other or with the kid, he's going to feed that, but he is not to blame ever. So he is the priesthood leader. He's the guide. And so he cannot be blamed unless, but my dad lived a completely different, all the wives were in the same house. When things blew up, everybody was there to listen. I mean, a lot of times it'd be like, hey, all the kids are going to go downstairs. The parents are having a conversation. And then my dad's first wife, she was always calling him out. So we were always being sent downstairs when they had family meetings, because she would just go off and tell everybody his faults. So it was awesome. It was awesome growing up in the way we grew up versus the way she did.
Yeah, his dad got humbled a lot. Yeah, people who go from house to house, the only sacrifices those men have to make is a kidney here and there. That's about it.
well, because I think that there's an added dynamic when you have that type of relationship. Because Cody had wound up saying it. I had said it a little while ago, but Cody wound up confessing to it in season 18, where he was talking to his brother and I think two of his friends. And he had said, well, if I have a problem with one wife where I just get agitated with one wife, I just go over to the other wife's house. And one of the key things to that is when you play into the dynamics of it, if you only get to be with your partner for a very short amount of time and it's very limited or sporadic, then you don't want your one night with your husband to be a night where you're sitting there arguing or dealing with problems or talking about how the kids are messing up in school. So that puts it, squarely on the wives to try to resolve a lot of these issues. And then when you toss into the mix, kind of season it like pepper, about the very fact that you don't want to be you don't want your house to be uncomfortable or inconvenient for the husband, because that will discourage him from wanting to come over and spend time with you.
Yeah.
So you try to make it the place of no problems. This is where Robin talked about like having the eternal honeymoon.
Yeah.
You want to create that honeymoon experience for him, because he don't want to come over there and deal with your issues. It's kind of like you a side chick at that point, though.
Right.
Because that's the place of no problems,
And that is the truth. It's different dynamics. The wives are trying to win his affection so that he's there at their place or with their kids most of the time. So
right. And it also creates another weird dynamic too, in addition, because at that point, what we see in the show, because I think it's very interesting. Like, there's a lot of case study, I guess you could do from the show, as far as interpersonal dynamics and relationships. If I was in school, I'd write a psychology paper on it if I could. But I think that it creates a scenario where Cody or somebody in Cody's position, the husband in that instance, even the father, from the children to the father's perspective, his presence actually becomes the reward for good behavior. So if I am the trophy, if I am the prize, then you'll do very little to try to offend the person who is the prize. So when we start talking about things like the financial restraints that he had on them, how is he able to, because I always talk about Coyote Pass and I go crazy about Coyote Pass all the time because it's something we can quantify and point to.
Right.
But, how did he get his name on all the parcels at Coyote Pass and screw all these ladies out? Is because ultimately they didn't want to question them. And that was the trick he used. And even moving forward, I think Mary, as far as she's come in her development and evolution, as far as leaving Cody, she's still in a place, like she's falling back into that safety zone of still trying to get his favor.
Yes.
And still not trying to upset the apple cart. I don't want to offend them. I don't want them to be upset. I don't want to be too prickly and too pushy. When he's talking about her business, like, that's crazy to me. He's talking about her money, but he's like, I'll call you when it's ready. But
because they're raised from birth to try to be in harmony with their priesthood leader. So
Mhm.
how can I be in harmony, even if things are we're going through a struggle or a hard time? I still need to be sweet and in harmony to get to the end. So suffer to the end.
Yeah.
So
Right. Suffer in silence, as they say.
mhm.
Suffer in silence. Let me we got a couple super chats. Let me hit those up. Crystal Manning with a $5 super chat. I am so listening while at work. I'm so happy you are listening while at work. Don't get in trouble though. Don't get in trouble. But yeah, I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're here. Thank you for coming in. We also have Susie Snyder with a $4.99 super chat. Thank you so much. I'm so happy to make it to the live. My three favorite people to listen to. Awesome.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Susie.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Let me give you guys a little something. Awesomeness. Thank you guys so much. But because even as we talk about a lot of that, and please jump in if you guys have any points that you want to make. I don't want to be like, oh, that guy, but if one of the things that we talk about all the time, especially with regard to the show, is the idea of power and control, the power dynamic, the way some of these ladies are pushed, like whether it's because of upbringing, because of the way they're taught. And again, it does push you, like even based off what Cory just said, there is a point where you feel like, at least on this show, that some of these ladies are almost bred to be wives
Mhm.
and not necessarily independent people or women or whatever the case. They're bred basically to be wives, full stop, wives and mothers. Like
Right.
that's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
And so what I think we're seeing now with their renaissance, like the renaissance, I call it the renaissance of the OG3, is they're coming into their own and they're discovering themselves. And I think that that's part of the majesty of what we're watching on the screen. But what do you guys think about like where that is, maybe from where they were, how they were brought up to where they are now?
So I love watching it personally because I remember that feeling when I finally left and finally found I worked 3 jobs at one point to figure out what it was that I wanted to do. Well, and to take care of my 3 babies. And so I love watching these women come into their own. Because a lot of women in these situations never get that opportunity. They never get that chance. And so these women are coming into this at almost like the peak period of their lives. Because the 50 is the new 40 and 40 is the new 30. So
Right.
I love watching these women at least get to have the second chapters of their lives be so fulfilling. And we were raised to be mothers. I mean, that's why I became a mother so young. That's why I got married so young, is because that was my responsibility and role in life, was to have babies. So I got married 8 days into 17, had a baby 9 months later, had the next one when God willed it, which was at 19. And so, and it's like a snowball effect almost, where it's like, you're just doing whatever you feel like the Lord wants you to do, or whatever you're being, guided to do at the time, until one day you wake up and then you're like, oh my gosh, I have a dozen kids, no education. And what do I do next? So I really am enjoying watching these women. I grew up with Christine and Mary, but Christine was who I was the closest to. We shared lockers next to each other in high school. And she was so outgoing all the time. Everybody adored her. And I spent a lot of time in her family home. And I feel like for a while there, that got squished and lost. And she almost lost that part of herself because, we really were taught not to have too much laughter, too much funfair, because that's where the adversary creeps into your life, is if you're having a good time. So I watched that kind of diminish in her. And Mary was the same way. Mary was just a light and everybody loved and adored her. And then she got married, and, you kind of just go through the shit of things, that everything's so hard, and you're trying to blend 3 wives and 500 kids. And it just gets so hard that you lose that light. And now you're seeing that light come back into these women's faces, and it's almost like they're aging backwards. It's awesome to watch how the light and the spark come back into their face that they used to have when they were teenagers. So
Right.
there was a long explanation for it, but yeah.
No,
I love it.
no. I think it's great. Corey, did you have anything you want to say on that?
Just some of the, I mean, growing up in our family, there were women that were workers. They provided for the family. Yeah. They brought money into the family, but when that money was made, it went into the family pot, and then they would get together and discuss. But my dad was the final say, if you will, on what that money needed to go to. And so to have those women who knew that they could make money, who were providers for our family, some of them then left, and they were financially they were the ones knew how to make the money. Well, I'm seeing people like Christine, Janelle, who have left him. They know how to make money. Janelle knows how to make money, and Cody's upset with that, especially in this episode, that she's leaving because she was one that produced probably more than him. She was the producer for that family, and he's vindictive about that. He is mean towards her because she knows how to make money, and she is done with him telling them what to do. And so she's going to go create her dream without him because she can do that. And that's frustrating to him because he has been the leader of this family for so long, and to now have one of his producers leave, 3 of his producers leave. And so I'm excited to see, because they're going out and producing now, and he's stuck with the non-producer. So
you know, Corey, I don't want to be crass. I don't want to be crass. I don't offend nobody, but that sounds like a pimp relationship. To be honest with you, like, it's very weird because you're saying, like, you got your producers, and if you look at Cody's side, like, how do you feel being the guy who killed the golden goose? You know, because she walks out of the family. But there's a couple points that really strikes me as I watch a lot of these situations. First and foremost, when we talk about the ladies coming into these relationships, it occurs to me that because you're trying, like, as bright as you are, like Cody, he seems like the guy who's always fluttering about, and he's always in the midst of something, trying to be the center of attention. And even in those types of relationships, as big as his personality is, ultimately, if you're married to him or someone like him, you can never shine brighter than him because you can never be better than him. You know, and that in itself is restrictive and is diminishing, because if you're flying and you're happy and you're doing well, like we talked about, you said that about Janelle. I've been saying that about Janelle too. So high five to the both of us. Because I said before that, you know, based on how the profession that Cody had, he could have a month where he does really well. He could have a dry month. But if Janelle's money is more consistent, then she could potentially be making way more money than he is on an annual basis. So she could be the primary breadwinner and he could be supplementing the family. But even with that being said, if you make that money because you're out there making that good money, you got to bring that money back to me, because you can't shine brighter than me. You can't be bigger than me. So what's yours has to be mine. Yeah. And so when you talk about Janelle leaving the family and taking her money with her, and then all of a sudden Cody wants to put his little fingers on top of her profits from her business, and he talks about, oh, I invested into the business, and I don't understand how she thinks she's gonna walk away with all the money. So ridiculous, right? It strikes me that you're discounting, because this is lopsided accounting. This is what that is. Like, you're discounting all the money she's already contributed into the family with zero return. So when she was out there working 60, 80 hours, and you were out there maybe pulling 20, but you're still driving a Lexus convertible, you're still wearing nice shoes, got a nice watch on your wrist, and you're doing all the things for yourself that she's paying for, you don't count that. But you only count the things like the little $250 you might have put towards a first kit that she got from an MLM or whatever the case may be. And I think that that's the problem. But do you think that there's anything to that, or what are your thoughts on it?
So go.
No, go ahead.
The most successful business, he says in this, the most successful business we've had, we donated it in for, and she took that. And so all of a sudden I'm like skipping back 2 or 3 episodes when Robin's like, are you working it out with Janelle? Are you making sure that you're connected? No, it's done. Are you sure? Are you? That's a huge paycheck.
You need to
What are you doing? I mean, were you working it with Mary? We have a nice lifestyle here.
Right.
You're ruining it.
You're ruining it. Make nice. So
I got bills on the 1st and 15th. And we out here riding ATVs.
Yep, shine up those 6-pack abs and get out there and woo her back. So
Right.
Sorry, I'm just being rude. Go.
No, I get you. But did you want to say anything?
Oh no, I just think it's funny because back in the day, I worked before I married my ex-husband. And then when we had our first child, I didn't work for a really long time. And then we separated a lot. But we separated at one particular time and I went and got a job. And I mean, this was back in 95 and I was averaging $25 an hour. That was a lot of money back then. And so I didn't want to give up this job, right? But he forced me to give up the job because it didn't work in with his schedule, his plans, whatever. So then his brother decides that he likes the sound of my voice and he's starting up this tech company and wants to hire me to be the phone person. So he calls my ex-husband and asks him if he can offer me a job because that's the only correct way to do it is to go through the husband to make sure that he's okay with me and what I'm earning and what I'm, and he doesn't want to bypass the leader of me. And so, and my ex-husband's like, it's about time I got the respect I deserved around. It was so gross. And so he tells me, he's like, yeah, you can offer her this job. I am like, my head's exploding at this point because they're a full 10, 15 minutes on each other on the phone, just like brown nosing the shit out of each other. Like, yeah, I just want to respect. Thanks, brother. Thanks for respecting my authority in this family. And so then he goes to hand me the phone. I'm like, tell your brother I would rather clean toilets at McDonald's with a toothbrush than ever work for him under these circumstances. And my ex-husband was so angry at me at the time because he was just like, you're giving up a good opportunity to earn money from somebody who actually cares about me. So that's
somebody cares about me and respects me.
Yeah.
As the leader. Wow. Yeah. Okay. I mean, I think it's.
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
I never worked for him. So.
I mean, I think it's interesting that they're there congratulate each other, back clapping, and meanwhile you can see Melanie with like mushroom clouds going off at the top of her head. So
yeah.
It's a shame that it's that way. And it also strikes me, too, that part of the limitation that is built into that restriction, making sure you're working the kind of jobs that are not only convenient for me as far as you being out of the house and something I'm comfortable with you doing, but I also, if we're talking about the oppressive nature of some of these marital institutions, it also strikes me that you don't want to give her the ability to be able to earn and walk out the door with money.
Exactly.
Because that is a source of control. It's a huge source of control.
Absolutely. Yep, absolutely. So, well, and his brother-in-law, my ex-brother-in-law at the time even assured him that the paychecks would come directly into a joint checking account that would not go directly to me. So, yeah, all of those assurances were made before I was offered a job. So
before he handed you the phone, just make sure we know my bank number is 45397.
Exactly. No.
If you give her a tip, she can give her $5 tips a day. So she can get a sandwich.
No, I got to make him a sandwich by my own. So.
You go buy that $5 sandwich and bring it home.
Exactly.
You can drink water with lemon. Well, because you had mentioned earlier about Robin's business, right? We talked a little bit about like Janelle having a business and of course Robin having a business. And I know one of the big things they talked about during this last week episode, which I thought was hilarious. Like, you know, Janelle's talking about, oh yeah, I bought 159 acres. We're gonna grow flowers and we're gonna have cabins and we're gonna do fishing and skydiving and all kinds of stuff. And Christine's like, yeah, I bought a house. And, oh, you mean the house you just moved in with David? No, we bought an extra house and we're gonna rent out. And they're talking about like all these businesses that they had going on. And then Mary, of course, has the bed and breakfast. She has the MLM business that's doing well. And you go back to Robin, and she's like, I started a business, but it didn't do well. And it occurred to me, it didn't do well because Cody didn't want to help me out, and nobody wanted to support me. Of course, Cody flies in, and I didn't really help her out. I didn't do my best. Da, da, da. But it struck me that this was also an example, because there's other stuff we can talk about it, but there was also an example of how, in my mind, these relationships exhibit that control. Because if you remember when the business first started, Cody Janelle called it a hobby business. Nobody was interested in being in the business. Christine said she could help out. Mary was pretty much helping Robin do the business. Then there was the episode they called Shark Tank, where they prospectively they were going to get $2 million. They were asking for $2 million investment. And it was in that episode, Cody sat around and said, well, I am the CEO of the business, and I need to have control of how the money is spent. So basically, the money will come to me, and I will control it. He got in an argument with the wives and threw a temper tantrum in the therapy session about being the boss or in control of that business. But he was only worried about the being in control of the business when the business looked like it was going to be $1 million business. Before that, he was like, oh, this is on you. I don't want nothing to do with it. But what do you guys think about like that level of control? Do you guys see that a lot in these polygamous relationships?
Oh yeah, all the time. I didn't know they were on Shark Tank, but we haven't watched about 90% of the show, so I didn't realize they were on Shark Tank.
Oh, they weren't on the show Shark Tank. They just called the episode Shark Tank.
Oh, I see. Oh, I'm like,
Yeah.
No idea they did that. Oh, I see. Yeah, we need to catch up on the show. Most people we know don't watch it.
Well, I love the fans because they're sending me episodes to go look at, because I was trying to get through the purity, see the purity one, because we grew up with those purity speeches all the time, and so I was.
Were they as cringe? Like, just a quick question. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but were the speeches you endured, were they as bad as the one I saw? Were they like that or worse?
Just as bad or worse. They were.
Okay.
She sounds pretty typical of pretty much every purity speech I've sat through. It was horrible. Yeah, it was like people begged us to go watch it and then give them our take on it. And I was like, oh gosh, not another purity speech. Yeah. We've sat through dozens of these in our lifetime. But it was pretty bad.
You'd get it within the family, the family home evenings. You'd also get it in the church whenever something was going on. So, yeah, that they were trying to scare you into
compliance.
To being righteous and stuff, which was, but they didn't give me a sex talk. So, but I had a pure what not to do, but so, yeah. So I was married at 30. So sorry.
I don't want nothing to do with that. It worked. Success.
Took me 30 years to be able to get married and have kids. So, because I didn't know I was trying to stay pure and sweet like Robin told me to.
Oh, jeez. I had to beg him to marry me. So.
Right. Like, this is your purity.
Oh my gosh, it was so cringy. It was one of the worst things I've ever seen. And honestly, if I was sitting in that room with children, I would have gathered my children up and made them leave. I would not have sat through that, and I wouldn't have let my children sit through that. So I've walked out of meetings like that because I refuse to let my kids listen to that. So yeah, it's definitely one of the worst things, one of the cringiest things I've seen on TV ever. But yeah. Right. But the level of control with the men in these, it absolutely is there. Men feel there is there is this absolute true dominance over a family, you know. And my mom started her own business when I was 14. And so I know, I don't think she'll speak on this episode, but she wanted to, you know, my dad, there's always that level of control. It's like, I'm going to go do this on my own so that I have this extra income. And then it's like, wait a minute, that could be prosperous. No, you're not. That needs to go back into the family. And then it's like, you know, my mom supported the family for years with her business, where people were coming in and getting products from her for free, basically. And, you know, and it's all under the guise of what's better for the family. And so they use that. And so people want to know, why are these women not on every piece of land? Because Cody did what was best for the family. And what the problem that these women don't understand, I don't know if you hear my mom laughing in the background, but what these women don't understand is when you are no longer a part of that family, then you're no longer entitled to those resources. And so you can pour into this your entire life. And he gets to make the decisions. I mean, he even said it in this last episode. If you are trying to run a business, the man has to be at the head of that business, because you can't have a sister wife telling another sister wife she can't be her boss. And so it's very clear. And the problem is, you know, some of these men are so unwise in their stewardship. They're not good stewards over their financial resources, their time, their love, even, or their affection towards their family. They're bad stewards, and they're not to be trusted. But they use the guise of the patriarchal system of the men should be in control as their backup every time, whether they're reliable, dependable, responsible, or not. So,
The honorable holder needs to be in control. So if he or if they can, if somebody does not, if they can get excommunicated from the AUB, they're no longer a priesthood holder. They can get their resources, their wives taken away from them. But as long as you're in line kissing the right ring or ass, you can. You are the
would that be my
leader
dad's
of
ass?
your family, or family? Yes.
You kiss
I was thinking not necessarily in that order, right?
No, his predecessor said I wasn't worthy, so I believe it.
And it's true. The church has removed assets from people before. They really have. It's not as common anymore. But when the AUB first formed, there was a lot of resources that everyone dumped into what's called, so you see it on a micro level with a family, but then the church does it on a bigger level with what's called United Order, where everybody will dump all their resources into something. And then if the top cheese guy says you're not worthy, then your resources are removed from you and your family.
Stripped out from under you.
And so,
you know what? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, my dad lived in the compound up in Pinesdale. That was a United Order.
Yeah.
The priesthood owned the land. Our resources were put into the land, built a home on the land. But once he is no longer worthy, that is all given back or taken back from the AUB. He has 2 wives that are still living in the property up there. That when he died, they were still living on there, and they just haven't. They weren't going to kick them off because that looks bad. So
Right.
2 of my mothers are still living up there on the property,
on priesthood property,
priesthood property, but it's technically owned by the priesthood, by the worthy priesthood holders. So,
but being in real estate, we kind of knew what to do, and Cory went and secured at least the home for the wives. So Cory made sure that the home was secured. And so the priesthood can no longer take away their home. That's no longer an option for them. I know Cory's like, maybe we shouldn't publicize that, but he made sure after his dad died that those women were protected, and that the priesthood could no longer come in and just say, we don't find you worthy, get out. But so this isn't just something that you'll see on a family level. This is something that you'll see on a church wide level too.
Right. See, that's exactly why I didn't want you to have education, Cory. See, that's why.
I'm
turning tables on them.
I'm climbing up on that heathen excommunication.
Got one more chit. check that box, you know.
Mhm.
But I do find that interesting because there is a point where there's a source of control from the husband to the wives. I should be in charge of the business because I know what's best for the business. And I get that. And then everybody pays into him because ultimately, in the way that I see a lot of what happened on the show, when Cody refers to the big picture or he talks about the family, ultimately, kind of translation in Cody knees, as Robin would say, I speak Cody. Uh,
Right.
in, in my translation, when I would go through the dictionary, uh, what I see is Cody is the family. Cody is the big picture. So when you talk about, well, we have to pour into the big picture, this isn't right for the family, or this doesn't meet the big picture. What he's talking about is it's not in my best interest.
Mhm.
And, to hell with everybody else. But I also think it's interesting that it would be on a larger scale. So it's almost like you learn from Big Brother, who's doing it as well. So the same way Cody is doing it to his wives, the church is doing it to everybody else.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
so it kind of trickles up. So at that point, and this is the weird reinforcement portion of it, is because if you are a wife who is technically under her husband, whose husband is technically under the church, that mentality is being reinforced. So it's not just happening in your home, it's something you see throughout community, and it's something that's being reinforced as an ideal. So when you revolt against that idea, you're just not going against you and Cody. It's you against Cody, you against the church, you against your neighbors, because everybody is living the same way. So that's why I think that there's that's what makes some of this, like, it ups the difficulty level for you to be able to get out and step away from this type of organization.
Mhm.
And I don't know if I'm putting too much into it, but that's just kind of what I see.
No, that's
Yeah.
you're exactly right. And we've been saying this for months
Yeah.
that these women will have to lawyer up if they want anything, because every single man that we know falls into the same category as Cody when women try to leave. In fact, the show is now promoted. I've heard, I haven't attended church myself to hear it, but apparently they're teaching everyone to now no longer have legal wives, so that no one can take away the assets of this man. And then because it's not the family, it's the assets of the man.
Which are the assets of the church.
Exactly. And so, we are taught from very small ages that when you grow up, you consecrate all your properties, your physical belongings, any tangible items to the church.
Your energy.
Yeah, your energy, your time, your love, your resources, everything goes to the church. And so
building up the kingdom of God.
Right.
Here on earth.
Right.
Okay.
And so the words that they're using now are too many wayward women are leaving and taking assets with them that should not be taken from the church's grasp. So they're now telling men not to marry women legally. So
Yeah. What's awesome in that is that I'm sure there are guys who are in that position who are thinking, wow, the church is really looking out for me. No, not at all. They're looking out for themselves.
yes.
Because what they've successfully done by eliminating the legal wife, they've also destroyed any survivorship. So you destroyed the process of willing your estate to your family after you pass.
Yeah.
And if it reverts back to the church, or they can take it from you, oh, you're not faithful enough. I like that fact you have a beachfront property. You haven't been to church enough. Mine. And it made it very simple, because instead of them having to go to court and fight with multiple people to try to take something, now they only have to combat one person and their potentially limited resources. So, I mean, I got to give credit where credit is due. Like, from the mastermind level, that's pretty smart. Like, you know what I mean? Like, from like the cartoon villain, like planning, like that's there.
That's awesome. Yeah. And it's funny because if you've ever read the book 48 Laws of Power, such a fantastic book, but we read that not too long ago. And I'm like, oh, my mind was blown, because I watched so many of those concepts used on. It's like I felt like reading that book. It was teaching me how to be a master manipulator.
cult leader.
A cult leader. Yeah. And so I'm reading this and I'm like, oh my gosh, I experienced that as a child. Oh my gosh, I experienced that. Oh my God. And so it's like so many awakenings when I read that. One of the best books I've ever read.
Okay.
But definitely if you are in a cult, and I actually did a podcast on exactly what a cult is and how do you know if you're in one type thing. And that's one of the steps is you isolate where you're dealing with just one person who then can go deal with many, but you're as the leader are dealing one-on-one with that person. And I feel like that's what a lot of these men do by being the only, because think about it, one man to every 4 women. I mean, that's a pretty big pyramid scheme. You got one guy on top who then, and then it spreads out from there. And then you've got a lot of, worker bees filtering up to the top. And that's what I see happens.
Right.
Yeah, it's supposed to be a community or a group of parents that are coming together.
Mm-hmm.
But when you have one person who usually is the priesthood holder that has veto power, kind of, then he's the one guiding it until you get a lightning bolt that strikes.
Right.
And now
you happen to be in church one day and young new hottie toddy just walking through and she's been electrified and power charged.
Yeah. And then you got to be sweet and shy and humble and just guide the priesthood leader wherever he needs to go. And so
right.
It's great.
It's that holy place. But I think there's that the weird part about the whole thing, because we talk about like the stewardship of it all. I think the weird part about it is that when you look at this, like actual leadership isn't just you telling people what to do because I'm in charge, but it's also assigning the appropriate people to the appropriate tasks.
Mm-hmm.
So ideally, if you're going to be a good steward of your family, even financially, we're going to talk financially, then you get the best suited person to take care of your family's finances. And that if that means that, say, for instance, if we're just going to use the archetype of the sister wives, and you say the most financially savvy person is Janelle, then she needs to be the person that takes not only the taxes, but possible investments. If she has business classes or understanding of business, or she has some kind of acumen, then that as the leader, you should be trying to get the best suited person for those positions. But what I hear a lot of times in the show isn't that they're trying to find the best suited person. It's just that you have to run it past me because I'm the leader and I'm the alpha male, and that's just the way it works. Have you guys seen a lot of, is this something that's a one-off for the show, or is this something that you've seen a lot of growing up in that community?
Yeah, I think we see that a lot growing up in the community. There's some men that should never lead a horse to water because that's just how bad they are. Like they're so bad at what they do, and how they would never have even gotten married once if they hadn't have been in the polygamous community, let alone 2 or 3 times. And that's just the kind of man that they are. And so, yeah, I do see it a lot, unfortunately. And then you're just like, how in the hell did this guy get 3 wives? He is dumb as a box of rocks. But yeah,
well,
I do see it a lot, unfortunately.
He was born in the right family or kissed the right ring.
Yeah.
So family pays really good tithing into the community or as part of a united order. So.
Yeah. And that's where, honestly, that's where some of these men get their wives. And unfortunately, they're not good leaders. They didn't have to do the work necessary to earn the wisdom to be a leader. And so they just were handed a wife or handed something else. And so they've never actually earned the wisdom. And so, and somebody who is unwise gets in there and tries to, lead women and lead children. And then you see what happens with people like Cody Brown, who don't have the wisdom to lead their family. And then when they don't have that wisdom and the family starts to fall apart, then they resort back to, I'm going to go back to a patriarchy system. I'm the dad. I'm the father. You better listen to me, even though he's done absolutely nothing to earn the respect or the love of his family, the respect or the love of his wives. But it's his simple position that demands that respect.
Exactly.
Right.
So,
well, because I think it's also weird too because one of the things that's kind of been because I guess recently I've been waging like this private war against the whole concept of the manosphere, but um, one of the things that's kind of popped up a few times was Cody saying that he's an alpha male on the show, and I think part of because I've seen him say it a few times throughout the series where he'll be talking to us. Well, you know, I'm an alpha male. I'm an alpha male,
Alpha
and I
males
think
don't have to say that they're alpha males.
right, right. I can go. I can say that for sure, for sure. You don't have to ever say it. If you just like if you're a leader, you don't have to say I'm the leader. Follow me. Yeah, but when it comes down to it, I think a lot of what he ascribes or attributes his alpha maleness or alpha maledom, whatever, to is the fact that he had multiple wives.
Yeah.
And because he had multiple wives, that's what makes him alpha. Because in a traditional sense, where you have monogamous relationships, well, you can only get one woman. Whereas I have three or four women who are my wives and committed to me. The ironic part is something that you touched on is that some of these relationships, not all, I'm sure, but some of these relationships are created because you know the right guy or you're in the right position and you're given these people. And it's not that you went out and you talked these women up and you married them and created relationships with them, maintained those relationships, married them, and then decided to add to those relationships. It's just that you were gifted three women, and these women, because of the nature of the community in which they grew up in, and the system that they ascribe to,
Yeah.
were trained to follow your lead.
Mhm.
So they're not saying like, oh, okay, you know what you're doing. I'm gonna follow right behind you. They're trained to follow you, and you're gifted them, and you claim that as a victory. And then, like you said, because you were given those relationships, you didn't earn them to begin with. So if you never earned it, you don't know how to maintain it, and you certainly don't know how to remake it if necessary. So once it falls apart, you don't know how to repair these relationships because you didn't put them together in the first place.
Right.
And I think that that's kind of what we see in some of the struggle that we see with Cody in these relationships. When he sat, for instance, I'm sorry, I'm kind of going off a little bit, but when he sat and he was talking to Janelle, and he said, like she said, well, I want to talk to you about the property. He said, whoa, we're skipping a little bit, aren't we?
Mhm.
What about us? Are we getting back together? That's not how you woo your wife back. Corey, Corey, when you mess up, brother,
Never.
you and I both know that you're not gonna get them back with. Why are we over it?
Yeah.
Yep.
I don't understand what the problem is. It's been 20 minutes. You still mad?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh,
But
so I didn't hear if there was a question there.
Oh no, I thought you were going to say something.
Oh no.
yeah, I thought it was coming. I thought, oh, Corey's about to say it. But let me run through some more super chats. We got some more super chats in. Donna Redmond, $10 super chat. My Dream Trio content creators.
Oh,
Thank you so much, Donna. Awesomeness. Well, you're a dream too, Donna. Don't let nobody tell you otherwise. Also, we have Lauren Garcia, $5 super chat. I'm happy to see the collab. Do you think Cody and Robin will last?
Nope. Well, we had a bet, but I think I've won her over. But no, I do not. There's too many things that Robin's dropping, too many hints. Cody didn't support her when she was putting together the sister wives closet. The other wives didn't. The other three wives have now left. And really, yes, Cody's got venom that he's throwing towards them, but she's having to deal with him all the time. And so, no, I think personally, you got another season or two before something's going on with the split up. She's already dropping little disgruntled lines of how Cody hasn't supported her, even though he has basically told all the kids that they can't be rude to her. They have to be nice to her. The other wives, you have to be nice to her. He's doing all this stuff, but there's points within his marriage that he wasn't 100% of a support to her. she's dropping a little bit of hints. So I'm not a prophet.
I just play one on TV.
Right.
But my guess is probably in another season or two, we'll see some troubles there too. Already seeing
looking for the hatch.
So, but they could, just out of spite to prove me wrong, stay in there for the long time. So
make it all about
that
Cory.
lightning bolt was true love. They might be soulmates. It might work out, but my guess is probably not. So
right.
Yeah, and I was 100% sure that they were going to stay together. I was like, no, they're gonna. There's no way that this is gonna end. But just based when he, Cody lies about a lot of things. We've all seen it on TV. But when he came and confessed about his tryst in college, that was what changed my mind, because he was extremely dishonest about that to the church, or he would have had to have been, to get married as quickly as he did. There would have been a process that he would have had to go through had he have been honest about that. And so that started the family off on a foundation that is just completely, and then she's got her purity or lack of purity too. So go ahead.
Well, and for them to be to gain the celestial kingdom, they have to have 3 wives that are in harmony. And when her whole story has been that she wants to be a polygamous wife, that she wants this community, she wants that. Him dropping that secret, I don't think he probably could get other wives within the AUB.
At this point.
Doesn't sound like he wants to be a part of the AUB. So if that is truly her dream, what she's been saying over and over again, and she truly feels like she needs to be married in a worthy polygamous family, and these guys have failed them by not being, they sold her a dream that was not true. Possibility, seeing down the road, that she will get a release from him also and marry within the AUB into a righteous family, so she can obtain that front porch rocking chair thing, or heaven, or whatever she is looking for. So I think that there might be an end to it, especially since all the actual producers of the family that made the money, that created this, are gone. And before too much of that disappears, she probably needs to get her half and then join a real polygamous family within the AUB. So
yeah. And I honestly, since that tryst comment, I was like, yeah, this isn't gonna last between these two. I think I did a whole video on the different personalities of wives. And one of them is a ticket wife, where she just basically marries a man for a pass to heaven. So I think she might stay with Cody for a while and then possibly just marry a man for a way to get into heaven. So that's my
passport to heaven.
Yep. Because women can't get themselves into heaven. They have to be attached to a man to do that.
Oh.
So yeah.
Well, I'm expecting next season, I want to see where Cody gives the purity speech to the kids. So the younger ones, I want to see what his purity speech sounds like.
Yeah.
So.
There was a girl in college and she stole my purity. But well, because I think that it's interesting that because even 2 points on that. The first point with regard to whether Robin and Cody are staying together. To add to something you said, Cory, about Robin kind of laying the groundwork. Even in was it the ATV accident episode about 2 episodes ago?
Mm-hmm.
If you notice, there was a point in there, because the whole time she's been saying how Cody's been nasty to her, he's been mean to her, and he's been abusive to her, basically. And there was a point where she got into the ATV accident. You see Cody come over and he jerks the helmet off her head, which is terrible. But are you all right? Are you okay? And he's concerned. Oh, you shouldn't have rode over the rocks. And he had that speech with her.
Mm-hmm.
But when they did the confessional, what did she say? He comes over and he starts yelling at me.
Yep.
And I'm hurt. And here he is yelling at me. Abuse like that. Mm-hmm. So if you're trying to lay the groundwork as to how you're being mistreated and how you're the victim in this relationship, she's putting it in. She's putting in the work.
Mm-hmm.
She's definitely putting in the work.
Okay.
And the second thing that you said that I thought was interesting, you said that Melanie, you said that in the AUB, if it came out that he had a tryst in college, it might prevent him from being able to take on additional wives, right? And I thought it was a little weird and disjointed that all of a sudden Cody has kept this secret apparently for 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
Now all of a sudden he's just rolling it out in the middle of like, oh yeah, and by the way, let me tell you about this freaking dick I knew in college, like out of nowhere. And it really didn't play well in the episode, but if since it's included, it begs the question to me: is this Cody's way of making sure he can't, like, you're burning that bridge to make sure that you can't go back to the AUB? He said he doesn't want to go back, and so this is a way that you're definitely, even if you could go back, you want to go back,
Right.
you can't go back now. And if you do come back, you're not going to be in full fellowship. At least that's what my understanding is.
Yeah, he would go through a repentance process where he could get back into a full fellowship if he wanted to, but it would be a long process. And honestly, this is where I see that the cracks come into the relationship, because Robin is keeping 1 foot in and 1 foot out. You can see in the way she talks about the AUB, she's got 1 foot in, 1 foot out. And Cody's out there sealing the deal of not being able to go back to the AUB. And so that's where that's why I'm saying the sliver is coming into their relationship, because she's now rewatching some of this going, you're going to ruin our chances. And I'm still trying to keep a foot in.
Yeah.
And so then that's where her resentment will grow towards him, and she'll be angry towards him because she's tried to keep a foot in and he's making sure that they can't get back in. And so that's where I think the anger and resentment will come from. And she'll leave him because he's not following God's plan for her or whatever. And then she will be welcomed back into the AUB. She absolutely will. And she'll be, yeah, she would have to go through a process herself, because she took off her garments and stuff like that with the church. She broke some of the promises that she would have made to the church, but she would absolutely be welcomed back. To God. Well, to God. She made those promises to God and to the church, but she would absolutely be welcomed back. And so would half of her estate. So, yeah.
Well, they might encourage her to leave earlier, so that way she can get that full cut.
Right, right.
Yeah, I thought, didn't you say at one point that she has or maintains a relationship with your dad still?
Last time I haven't talked to my dad in about a year and a half. I've kind of taken a big step back from him. And so the last time I did talk to him, then yeah, he had spoken to her, but not as often. Like, he doesn't counsel her like he used to.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the whole family took a huge step back. I know there's a joke out there. Someone just says Mel's new stepmom. There's a joke out there that if she went back to the AUB, my dad would marry her. So, oh my God.
All in the family.
I'm like, absolutely not. She's way younger than me. But I mean, that doesn't stop a lot of the men from anything. My mom's over here dying laughing. She thinks it's hilarious. So
as soon as you say she's younger than me, Cory looked over and you're like, yeah, that makes a difference.
I know. Cory's face gives the whole thing away. But yeah, my mom's over here laughing. I did a surprise live with my mom the other night for about 15 minutes. And her comment to that was, my dad would get exactly what he deserves if he marries Robin. So
yeah.
There's nothing out there in the universe that even slightly says that will ever happen. It's just kind of a joke that people have done online. So,
well, you better secure the bag. That's all I'm saying. Check your pockets. Check your pockets.
It's that estate. We don't want that estate to go into the hands of the wrong people. So
it'll be taken care of by the righteous priesthood holder.
Right. So. It's hilarious.
Well, thank you so much. Great question, Lauren Garcia. I'm sorry, Gracie. Yeah. Oh, wow. Woo, the reading is not there today. But all right, Eve R with the $5 super chat. What is your take on Janelle converting? I get the other three, but she was not raised this way. And she was previously married to Mary's brother.
Was she raised in the LDS?
Yeah, she was raised LDS. So her mom actually, I don't know the whole history there, but I know her mom did marry Cody's dad at one point. I don't know if it was before or after Cody and her got married. But Cody was very charismatic as a younger man. And, I knew Mary's brother, Adam. He's a great guy. I always really liked Adam. And he was a good guy, but I guess they just weren't compatible. I don't think there was ever like an ill falling out between the two of them.
Right.
I think she just probably watched her mom go through the conversion process of being converted into the AUB and then finding Wynn and marrying him. And then she already knew Cody. And so because she was not a threat to him, because she was married, he could just be his normal self around her. And so they got to know each other. So I think that that's just a part of the reason is she probably genuinely fell in love with Cody. And then he knew her too. So I think that there was probably genuine compatibility there.
Right.
And so I think that helps with the conversion process to polygamy, to be honest, is if you fall in love with somebody who's already married.
Well, and if she was raised in the LDS church, she has the same foundation. The only thing the LDS church did was change that they don't live polygamy now. But the foundation of the LDS church is that's how they all used to live. And so she would be going back to the foundation,
to the roots of Mormonism.
And if she was raised that same way, she was most likely raised the exact same way that the AUB raises their children.
Well, very similarly. I mean, the AUB is obviously one, even FLDS is even farther, strict than the AUB is, but I would say the AUB is probably the closest to Mormon traditions than any other church out there.
My mother was raised in the LDS church.
And both of my parents were raised in the LDS church.
And
they all
if they study deep enough into their background or their scriptures, then
the doctrine,
they add that doctrine to it. So
right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
Fair
it was
play.
Yeah, it'd be very easy for Janelle to convert over.
Yeah.
Very easy.
So
if she had no religious background whatsoever, or she was Catholic, or she was Protestant, or she was Muslim, or whatever other, any other type of religion, she might have had a harder time converting. But Mormonism parallels exactly with AUB. And so the conversion's super easy at that point, other than you have to share your husband with somebody else. So that's the hiccup. So.
Well, I guess if you really think about it, though, if you kind of parse it all the way out, even now that I'm put my mind to it, as far as the conversion, one, like you said, it'll be easier to convert to a religion if you already have the foundation. Foundationally, you're already there. And there may be a couple doctrines in addition to where you already are that you may have to start adhering to. That, that's no harm, no foul. But the big part, as far as you falling in love with somebody who is like your LDS, you fall in love with somebody who's AUB, you want to marry that person, and you say, you know what? As far as polygamy is concerned, he already has a wife. So technically, if Janelle fell in love with a man who already had a wife, to do polygamy at that point, what is, you know what I mean? Like he's already has somebody. So technically it would almost be as though you're the other woman coming into a relationship with somebody who is already previously engaged. So it wouldn't be that much of a shakeup. I think it's a little off-putting for some people if you put it in terms of, Janelle just kind of fresh off the street, never had a history with the LDS, and then she entered into maybe not necessarily the AUB, but a system similar to where AUB is, and you all of a sudden go into a lottery and they pick a husband for you, some guy that you never met, then that might be way more shocking that somebody would do it that way as opposed to Janelle kind of easing into it. Because that's really, to me, that's more of a warm bath situation. Like she's easing into a warm bath situation where she was already comfortable with the people. She likes everybody she's involved with. She's talking to Cody. She's talking to Mary. Hey, I get along with everybody. I already know the book, so I can pass the test.
And she probably had no interest in Cody before she got divorced. It was just probably after she got divorced that she was like, oh, hey, this guy's here. I could, because I think she was divorced for quite a while before she married Cody, from my understanding. But I don't know their history really. But, I met Cory in a couple of years, 3 or 4 years before we got together. And I just thought he was so cute. And because I wasn't a threat to him, he could just be his natural self around me because I was married with children. And so he didn't have to put those pretenses up that other people do when you're in the dating scene. And so I was really able to get to know him a lot better and like learn his character before I became single. And I never thought I would be single. I thought I'd be married forever. Right. And so because we were in this eternal marriage forever. And so when, so yeah, I actually did try. I wanted Cory to date one of my sisters because I thought he was so sweet and so nice. And I was just wanted him to, you know, I like, he's such a great guy. My sisters deserve to have such a great guy. And thank goodness he never actually went out with any of my sisters, because then when I became available, I asked him out and he was like, I can't go out with you. You're married. And I'm like, no, I'm actually divorced now. And his whole demeanor changed. He became a completely different person around me, because then he was like, oh, shoot, I became, he was like, he literally just like left the barbecue that we were at and he just went and washed his car. And then, and so that's what so I got to know who he was before the bumbling idiot came in, because then now all of a sudden I was available and he was like, what the heck? So, yeah, so that's where I think that it was easier for Janelle to fall in love with Cody, because she just had been around him at family functions. You know what I mean? So,
right.
So, yeah, I think that's funny. Yeah. And the minute that I told Cory I was available, he was like, but his brain went blank. His mouth dropped. He couldn't even speak. And then, and then we started going out after that. But I had to ask him out because he was pretty much single and staying single for the rest of his life. So
I was like Robin. I was shy, sweet.
You were quiet and shy.
None of the above.
Well, I get it. He had a reset. He was like, oh, man, I didn't put on the necessary cool. I didn't put my cool on. I'm sitting there telling her the truth. I told her too much. She had too much information.
That's hilarious. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, so how am I going to be the man of mystery and I done told all the secrets? That's all right.
Yeah.
But it worked out lovely. It's a good thing you didn't date her sisters, man, because that could make Christmas and Thanksgiving a little awkward.
I know. He was actually at a barbecue because his brother was trying to hook him up with my sister at that barbecue. And I went up to him and I'm like, don't take my sister out. Take me out. And he was like, what? I can't take you out. My sister is, she was 4 months older than me. So we were the same age. And her mother had moved her to Montana. She'd lived in Montana. He'd lived in Montana. So they're like, oh, they're two Montana kids. They're going to love each other. They hated each other.
Right.
So yeah, they absolutely hated each other. And then after that barbecue, I was like, we're done. We're going out. And so we started dating at that point. So
that's the dark side of the hookup.
Yeah.
That's the dark side of the hookup.
25-year anniversary from when we first started dating. So.
Okay. Happy anniversary. See, it worked.
Yeah, it did.
It worked. See, they try to hook you up and they be like, he's from Montana. She's from Montana. Has nothing to do with it.
Nope, nothing at all. She thought he was, she's very outspoken, very feisty, very just says what's on her mind. And she is, at the time, was very much into alcohol and always having a very good time. She's no longer that way now, but at the time we were 25. So she was having a good time at life at that point. So
life of the party. I get it.
Yeah. Yeah. And Cory was just like, yeah, this is a whole lot of energy for me to handle. I'm not dealing with this. So
because Cory's shy, of course. He's shy and reserved. It's too much for me.
No, not at all.
I need to find one of these corners to go sit in. I got you, Cory. It's always the quiet ones that you got to watch out for, though. Just a little side note.
That's what my ex-husband thinks now. It's always the quiet, shy ones that sneak in and marry off your ex-wife.
Right. He's like, what? Cory?
I didn't even see that. Well, a lot of people didn't see that one coming because I am a lot more outspoken and I am a lot more, extroverted than Cory is for sure. Cory's definitely introverted and I'm a lot more. Right. I would say that I'm an introvert, but I'm more of an extroverted introvert than he is. So.
Right. Well, you know what? In fairness, though, because I have a similar dynamic in my relationship, and what I find is that because I can be an introvert. I have introvertive aspects to my personality, but at the same time, Gemini, I could be an extreme extrovert. Like I'm one of them guys. I could go to a place. When I was in my 20s, I would go out by myself. and I would just sit and talk to everybody in the place. You know what I mean? Like that's just what I would do. And for me, I find that a good balance for me is that I need somebody to offset my personality, and that's what my wife does. Like, so she adds to me where the things that I need, where I'm strong, she's not necessarily strong. Where she's strong, I'm not strong at all. So we balance each other out. And I think that works out a lot better than trying to find somebody who's exactly like you. Because me with another person like me, it'd be ridiculous. Like nothing would get done. Like it'd be the most ridiculous situation ever.
Yeah. Yep. I'm a Gemini too, so I totally get that. I get the dual personality thing. 1 minute I'm all about hanging out, and the next minute I'm like, yeah, not today. So
yeah.
I have those Gemini
What's time?
too.
It's past my bedtime. Like, what am I doing? Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but I would know everybody at I mean, it would be crazy. I would know everybody on Skid Row is probably what would happen.
Right.
I'd be on first name basis with them. The most popular guy at the poorhouse. But yeah, I think the balance is good though. Next we got Michelle Lee with Michelle Lee B73 $5 super chat. Mel and Cory, have you guys received any backlash from the Brown family for your podcast? Good question.
Nope. Not so far. We haven't. I know that they've watched some of it. I've heard from a few of them, but not anything negative so far.
Okay.
So, no. And really, our podcast wasn't meant to be around the sister wives. It just people had asked us to talk about it, so we did. And then when that went viral, we decided to go ahead and just talk about this season. This is the first time we've ever talked about the sister wives. And so, no, we haven't. 99% of all of the feedback that we've gotten from people in the community that we used to belong to has been very positive. There's only been one or two people that have been like, this is crazy shit. What are they doing? And so most of it's been very positive, or people have been very supportive of it. I mean, my mom's sitting right here next to us. So it's been very positive. And then, and even some of the feedback that I've gotten from some of the Browns has been very positive. So it hasn't been negative. I wouldn't say it's been very positive, but I wouldn't say it's been negative either. And so the last time I talked, Mary, it was, hey, let's get together soon. So
okay.
Yeah.
So at least she's not writing a name down on like little voodoo dolls and stuff. That's awesome.
Yeah, no voodoo dolls for us.
Like Mel, Mel and Cory.
The most important, the very most important part of the AUB has not supported her very. She's lying about.
Oh, my dad. Well, my dad, definitely. My dad is not happy about it at all. But I started the podcast about 1.5 years ago, and I was just doing actual just podcasts. We weren't doing these lives and stuff like that. And my dad struggled with a lot of what I had to say in those podcasts. And he did call me because I did do a video that I put out on my social media. My sister did an interview with somebody, and I felt like it was she was very misrepresented by this content creator, if you want to call it a creator. And so
creating stories.
Yeah. And so I did a video response to that, calling the AUB a cult. And my dad lost his mind on me, and he gave me a phone call and told me I was never to use that word online ever again. And I'm wow. Yeah. And so it was pretty aggressive phone call. And there was no, why do you think you need to use that word? What's happening? And I'm 48 years old. I'll use whatever words I want to at this point in my life, young man. So we had that conversation, and and then my little brother passed shortly thereafter. And so I just taken a step back from my dad since then. So yeah, he doesn't have a lot of, he's not happy about the podcast, let's say, but he really struggled with the fact that I used the word cult. So, and he struggles with the fact that I would not maybe, respect him in his position. And so, and that, those were his words. How can you respect me in the position that I'm in if you're out there saying it's a cult? And I said, well, I believe that it is a cult. And so I did actually a whole podcast on what defines a cult, and went through every example of what defines a cult, and then gave a personal life experience of when I
Of
experienced
how
that.
that applies.
Exactly.
Check mark,
Yeah.
check mark,
Well, that
check mark.
makes it a
Right.
cult. That makes it a cult. So, and so I just told my dad, I just said, I'm sorry that I'm sorry that you're upset about this, but this is my reality, and I'll be talking about my
Right.
take on reality. So there you go.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
There you go.
yeah. So
Hopefully they pull me into it. I don't need no enemies in Utah.
right. Yeah.
I'm
So
just joking.
So he's not happy about it, obviously, but I haven't spoken to him in about a year and a half. I spoke to him at my grandma's
Okay.
funeral a couple months back, but it was casual. It was nice.
Very brief.
Yeah. Niceties of just, hey, Dad. I just walked straight up to him and gave him a hug, and he was a little bit stunned, like, wait, you're talking shit about me online. What are you hugging me for? And I'm like, I'm not really talking shit about you. Maddie posted this thing that says it's not really shit talking if it's the truth.
Right.
And so I don't feel like I really shit talk him online as much as I'm just telling what happened in my experiences. So,
Right.
yeah.
Well, I'll give you what my mom used to say from the time I was a little kid. The only thing you owe people is the truth. That's it. So as long as you're not being dishonest in your assessments, your observations, or your experiences,
Yep.
then it is what it is. And you just got to get on and get off. But either way, the train's rolling through. So I respect the fact that I think too, like when we talk about like, because I have sometimes some terse things to say about the AUB religion. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I am that guy, but I do respect the fact that if you are in that position, like for instance with your dad's situation, he's not looking at it as I'm this guy who's just taking advantage of situations, even though he may be taking advantage of situations. I don't know him personally, so I can't say for sure. But in the mind of him, he may be looking at it from the perspective of this is what he actually believes.
Right.
And so if he genuinely believes that he's on the right path, and he's steering people to heaven, then it'll be hard for him to hear that he may not be, steering. He may not only is he not steering people to heaven, but he may be providing people hell on earth. Like, so it could be a hard pill to swallow, but it is, like I said, it is kind of what it is. And
Right.
sometimes part of being in that leadership role is listening to people's experiences so that you can learn from them, so you can develop things in a more positive manner. Maybe if people heard, people in leadership, just as a general suggestion, guys, but if people in leadership actually heard your position and your story and the stories of people like you, and not to evoke your mom too much in her story, I don't want to talk a business, put a business in the street, but people from her perspective, where she is, and she's going through what she's going through, and actually sit down and listen and try to understand what they're saying and what they're talking about, what their concerns are.
Right.
Maybe you can create that positive experience to where you can start to remedy some of these things, and you can start to fix some of these relationships. The broken, like if you want to have people having 4 and 5 wives, teach them how to have 4 and 5 wives. Teach them the importance of patience, consideration, spending time with your kids, developing those relationships, not only with your kids, but your wives, teaching them how to work together as opposed to putting them diametrically opposed to one another, because the house divided amongst itself cannot stand, like a Bible verse you hang on my wall. But, those types of aspects, I think, will go a long way with helping to defeat the very thing that you're upset that people are saying about you.
Right.
But you can't keep doing what you've been doing and then mad that people are making the same observations, because
Right.
it's kind of funny that everybody has the same observation and are saying the same things.
Right. Yeah. And when my mom left, nobody in the leadership talked to her about anything. So, and that's unfortunate, because having been lived that way for 50 something years, there would be some wisdom there that could be inferred. But yeah. So I absolutely agree with you on so much of that. So yeah, it's a good portion of the people that we know are extremely supportive, and I do have my mom listen to every single thing we do, because then I'm like, hey, if there's something that I missed up, if I didn't get something right, bring it to my attention so I can correct it. Because I want to make sure that what we get out there to the public is as accurate as possible. Is, because a lot of it times, I'll admit, it can be filtered through my own experience. And so I'm not, I'm seeing things with a prejudice because of the experiences that I've gone through. So when I try to give commentary, especially on the Browns, a lot of times I'll try to wrap it around to an experience that I had that I felt like was similar or coincides with the Browns. So that way I can say, this is my experience and this is why I think this about what's happening. And so, so it was, I feel like we've really tried to be as integrable about our commentary as we can. But there's moments where, oh my gosh, we get so frustrated. We're just like, what is this man talking about?
Yeah, so. And I'll absolutely admit too that most of my perspective on polygamy is coming from a child point of view, looking up, seeing how it happened. And as far as Robin's concerned, most of it's probably prejudice because I grew up with her mother in the community, and I didn't get along with her mother. I didn't like her mother. I was best friends with part of that family, and she was my least favorite in that family, and her daughter seems to be very following suit, exactly the same behaviors that her mother did on the previous family. So that's where my prejudice comes in. I don't know Robin. She was a little kid last time I saw her. I mean, I've seen her at different get-togethers, but I have no relationship. I don't have a relationship with Cody either. So Christine was probably the one that I had the best relationship with because we grew up, we were teenagers around the same age. So family, but
So
I mean, I think that's fair though. I think that's fair because I say the same thing. Like ultimately, these aren't my friends. Like we're not hanging out on the weekends. They aren't telling me their deep dark secrets. I'm just merely making assessments based off what I see on the show and in what my understanding of personal and interpersonal dynamics are. And that's where I take my perspective from. But
well, you're usually pretty accurate because my mom sends me your videos all the time, and she's like, "This is the most accurate take that I have gotten or that I see." So your points are usually right on. So
I'm sure your mom is being super kind. I appreciate it though. I 100% appreciate it. Awesomeness. But we have Mary Harmon, $5 super chat, $4.99 super chat. I think it might be 4.99 pounds. So top of the morning from across the pond. One word for Cody: abhorrent. I wish he wasn't making so much money. Thank you, lovely people, for keeping the UK Sam's right up to date as we are very behind. Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate that, and we're trying to hold them more accountable. And I think that there's also a perspective too that when we talk about, or at least from my perspective, and maybe you guys are sharing this as well, that when I look at a lot of what happens in the Brown family, even though we're talking about a polygamous staged show and relationship, I think a lot of the things that happen within this family can be applied to a lot of different relationships across the board.
Right.
Whether it's dealing with toxic people trying to manipulate you, controlling individuals who are trying to force you to do things like I think you guys have mentioned historically in your podcast or your videos, like the seed planting. That's not just something that happens in polygamous relationships.
Right.
Like we can, I can say at least 4 or 5 situations where that's total seed plant. Like they're laying it out. But it's just understanding, maybe watching these shows gives us a better understanding of things or relationships or people who we may encounter and people that are in our lives, and maybe even help people that need that help or assistance.
Right. Well, it's like relationships on steroids because everything gets in your face all the time. You might not have the same experiences in 20 years with the small group of people that you're interacting with that you would have in 1 year with a huge group of people that you're interacting with in a familial status. So that's why I think it's absolutely like relationships on steroids. So there's a lot to learn if you're willing to be teachable.
Awesome. Just from your mouth to God's ear, we'll say. Certainly teachable moments. Brittany, not Brittany. She's one of my moderators. Thank you, Brittany, for moderating for us. 499 Super Chat. I work in a bookstore, and you can always tell who's buying 48 Laws of Power or Art of Seduction for nefarious purposes. Like so they're coming in trying to figure out how to fool people.
It's
nefarious revelations they're trying to get for running a cult. So.
Yeah, we had I can't remember why we started reading the book, but we did. And I was like, oh my gosh, I almost feel like I'm giving a step-by-step guide on how to be an asshole.
Right. Like the startup guide to cults.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was a great book though. But I can definitely see how in the wrong hands it can be used for so many levels of manipulation. And it just opened my eyes to how much I've been manipulated by people who want power for nefarious reasons, So
right.
Yeah.
It opens your eyes, especially as a kid who's grown up into it. Okay, this is why this leader said this or did this. And so it does, if you read through it and can learn the lessons so you're not being controlled by a cult. So it was one of those wake up calls for me once I read the book of, oh my gosh. And so, helps me avoid joining any other cults. So because when you're raised in a cult, you jump from cult to cult to cult. Trying to get a connection. So.
Right. Keep falling into those bad relationships. But I think that there's also like a point too, even Brittany, not Brittany's point, is that a lot of times, like I saw that in the practice of them going to see the therapist on the show, then all of a sudden everybody starts using these like pop psychology terms. I'm not safe. This isn't a safe situation. And if you have the wrong individual, depending on how you see them, going to seek therapy or therapeutic help, some people take that session and they improve upon themselves. Other people take that session and they just learn the weaknesses of others. So it almost becomes a roadmap of how to screw other people over. Like 48 Laws of Power was probably written with the hopes that this would enlighten people of how to avoid these types of situations of manipulations. Whereas people who want to manipulate people, I want to date on Sunday. So I'm going to read the 48 Laws of Power so that way I can influence people negatively when I go to the bar. Like something simple as that.
Yep.
Or how can I sell cars better?
Yep. And I started taking like self-help trainings or whatever when I was 20 years old. And it was what woke me up to, even that world of knowing or learning yourself. Yep. And I have watched so many people come in and out of that circle of just learn. They come in, they pick up just enough tools to turn around and manipulate the people in their lives or do more damage than good because they don't know exactly what they're talking about, but they think they do. And so then they apply these concepts in the wrong or inappropriate situations. So it's just interesting. And when I went through my very first self-help training, 99% of the people in the room were all polygamous people. And I did not know that when I went there. I was like mortified. I was like, I'm not doing this class with these people. But I gained some lifelong friendships out of that. Even after I left the AUB, I still have some lifelong friendships because, from the people who have decided to stay in the AUB. So, but yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I think if you go in there with the intent of learning yourself and who you are and how do you better your life and become a better person, then you can find so much value in that kind of stuff. But if you go in there for nefarious reasons, then you can find that too.
If you're going in to as a good, solid priesthood leader, and you're going to learn what I can do so I can pick out the flaws in each one of my wives and guide her to becoming a better person. Or if I'm the head wife who is very righteous, if I'm looking to see what the flaws are in the other wife, so I could keep pointing them out to her. Yeah, then you're probably not going to learn that much. So
I know. I about literally almost threw something at the television the other day when Cody was like, because we've been talking about this for a while, that there's lists that these men give these polygamous women, right? We've been talking about this for a while, and people are like, there's no list. Yeah, there are. There absolutely are lists. And I actually went and talked to a bunch of people that I know about these lists. Well, then Cody gets up there and he's like, yeah, there. If you want to improve your relationship with me, don't you want to know? Like, don't you want a roadmap? I'm going to give you a roadmap on how to get there, and I'm going to start with all the things that you do that bother me.
Mhm.
What?
Right.
What did you just say?
Right. Well, no, I appreciate it. You can feel free to go bilingual if necessary, speak some French. But I do think I appreciate the fact that, he says, well, don't you want to tell him how to improve a relationship with me? Because that would be so helpful. The ironic part about it is that I wonder if you are as open to your wife handing you a list back. So when you hand her a list and she said, well, here's my list, does that list get crumpled up and filed in the throw it away? Of course it does, because you're not interested in that, because ultimately, kind of what we had talked about before, you are the prize. So as Cody said in one of the tell-alls, it's not about a favorite, it's about earning my favor. And so if you're the prize, I'm telling you how to win me over. I'm telling you how to win the prize. And I think that's where he's coming from when he says that I hand her, the ridiculous. I had like the fact that you would write it down.
Well, the third thing on his list is you never hand a list to him. So she's already violated his list by trying to give a list to him. So
right. Don't hand me things. I'm opposed to that.
That's my job, woman. Now you're taking my job.
Exactly. That includes children. Don't be trying to hand me them kids. Yeah. Them dirty diapers.
That's funny.
But we also have passing for normal, $5 super chat. Aren't we all? Sometimes barely passing for normal. It seems like some people in the LDS realize that they were lied to and leave religion, and others double down and go fundamental. So do you find that a lot? Like people either say, LDS isn't for me, or leave, or they say, you know what, the hell with it, I'm gonna go ahead and just go all the way. And
yeah, I notice that a lot. I really do. And it goes the other direction too, that AUB people or polygamous people will leave and not know where to go. So they will go to the LDS church, or they will like completely fly off the handle and do not, and then they go to like hardcore lives. And so, I think the LDS church has become a transition for people to leave the AUB too, or polygamous lifestyle. They move into that's what we both did. We both joined the LDS church, and then we eventually left and have no religion. We don't practice a religion right now. And so, I think I think that statement is very true, that they realize that they have been lied to either by the leaders of the church about the true history of Mormonism, or they go and they completely leave altogether because they've lied. They feel so deceived.
Deceived, right.
Yeah.
They either get
what?
Yeah, there's either a choice of, wait a minute, do we go hardcore to the founding teachings and
principles, right?
Or is the whole thing
a lie?
And so, yeah, I got excommunicated, came into the LDS church, and then I was like, it's exactly the same thing without the polygamy, but same leadership, same shaming,
organization,
same organization,
right?
Just a milder version, I guess, of it. And so I was like, yeah, I've already seen what I don't want. This is exactly what it broke my mother's side of the family are all LDS. And so by me leaving again and not being a part of it really did break their hearts, which sucks. I love my family. Right. I love the family that's part of the LDS. I love my family that's part of the AUB. I really do love my whole family. I just don't believe in the control, I just don't believe in that stuff anymore. So I'm trying to kind of explain to people, hey, give these people a little bit of grace. They were raised in this from birth, and they are slowly learning how to step away from it. And out here in the big scary world with Gentiles, it's really safe. It's awesome. We get along with people. We're not going to hell. You're going to be okay out here in this big scary world.
Right.
It's not that scary. So
Yeah, I can see that. But I think that, like, from my personal experience, I think that sometimes, not all the time, and certainly not with all religions, but sometimes organized religion has a way, if applied harshly or inappropriately, to pushing people out of faith. Because you're coming at people and you're creating these rules, doctrines, guidelines, and tenets that people are supposed to follow, and then you find out that you aren't practicing. You telling me to do all these things, but you're nowhere near that, or you're telling me don't worry about money, but you're driving around in a limousine, and I'm barely got bus money, money to get on the bus. Like, what? It's not fair. Something's going on. Or you paying for the church fund, y'all didn't put a damn doorknob on that church. Like, so what are we doing? And that kind of thing. So I think that exists not only in the AUB or the LDS church, but I think that can exist in any faith. And it's really, on the shoulders of the leadership of those religions or those faiths or belief systems to try to create, more cohesive doctrine, as well as how you live your life. Don't tell me you're a Christian or you're a Jew, Gentile, or Islam, Muslim, or whatever. Show me what it means in your faith, as opposed to you telling me what your faith is about. And illustrate and live that example. And sometimes with some religions, you just don't see that example coming down from the leadership.
Right.
So,
Right.
it's absolutely the truth. The example is, if you sin, you can be forgiven, going through repentance and all of those things. That's what Christ died on the cross for us.
Right.
But they make examples of people that sin that are in the wrong family. Some of them can get rebaptized, are married within the temple if you got the right last name. Others are excommunicated. This is probably why Cody kept it a secret for 35 years that he had, and from 2 wives and from all of his children, what he did. Because if he doesn't tell, if he keeps that secret, he can just get pushed up through the ranks within the AUB. So how many people truly don't go through the repentance process because they're scared of the public shaming, the flogging, whatever it is. So they keep these secrets and usually rank up really, really nice and high within the community, because on the outside it looks great until later on in life when it all comes out. So
yeah.
And then when you're 18 and get excommunicated, it's really cool, because then you're going to hell and you don't have to worry about all of these rules and regulations that from birth you were told you had to follow. So it's awesome.
Right. By getting kicked out, you experience true freedom in a weird way.
Out sometimes I feel like was easier, because everything that I was told that I needed to do to make it to heaven, all of a sudden they just kind of took it away. No, you're never going to make it to heaven. You got to get out there and learn on your own and create your own belief systems. Other people that have gone through the years of deconstructing their belief so that they can get to a point where, okay, I don't have to listen to these leaders to make it to heaven. I don't have to have 9 wives to make it to heaven. I just have to be a good person. And so, yeah, I feel like I had it easier by being excommunicated than her working years to deconstruct that belief system.
To try to come out. Right. Well, getting kicked out, you don't have any choice. So you didn't have to reconcile anything. You're not welcome.
Right.
You're not welcome.
And one of the weird things to me, especially because I grew up Catholic, but I have deeper roots in like my grandparents were like Baptist. My grandfather was
Mhm.
a preacher and all that. But one of the things that I always found funny about like, especially like most Christian religions, is that under those doctrines, you believe that Christ came down as a sacrifice to die for your sins so that you could get into heaven. He basically paid the way for you to get into heaven. But then when you go to the church on Sunday, it seemed like everybody trying to send your ass to hell. Like, you know what I mean? Like Christ died to take you to heaven, and everybody who's supposed to be following him is trying to send you the other way. So, like, it's just not like again. Those are like what it strikes to me that if anything, you should be trying to find grace for me and allow me to do things, experiment with things, seek, true penance and be able to make it into heaven because I seek that retribution or not retribution, but I seek that anointment from God through confession or whatever. He died for me to get in there, so I just want to ride in like you riding in because you didn't pay your way either, Playboy. So so it's just weird. Like that's always been a weird thing. So the people on high are always telling everybody below them that they doing something wrong, and this is the thing that is going to send you to hell. While meanwhile, you're doing 10 other things that's also listed in the Bible as sins, but those supposedly aren't so bad. So
Right.
So if you have a high enough ranking in the AUB, you are Christian. If you're lower peasants into the AUB, yeah, the grace isn't there for you. It's kind of cool. So
he just messed up with one wife, right? It's okay. He only had one wife. It's all right.
yeah.
Oh, we have Brenda Allegranzi. Hopefully I got that right. $10 super chat. Sorry I missed you Sunday. Sending my support today. No worries. Well, I don't know if that's for me or for you guys. If you guys did a Sunday show, but either way, I'm happy you're here now.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if these are coming to you or us. This is our first combined YouTube we've ever done. So we're watching you run your show.
Yeah, this is awesome.
Hey, no worries. No worries. I'm sure they'll hit the same pot again. So we'll see. Michelle Lee, B73, $5 super chat. Mary and Mel Cory, have you guys received any backlash from the Brown family from your podcast? Oh, okay. I think I read that one. Or maybe they just wanted to ask that question. If you wanted to, you already said that.
They know who I am. So I've been away so long, I don't think they have a clue who I am. They probably know her.
You don't know. Because I think that at the end of the day, it's like most things when people talk about you, you probably listen to them at least once to find out what they say. So you can talk properly. You can curse them properly. They don't know me.
Yeah. Well, the funny part is I am the oldest brother or the oldest son of my mom's, but I've got another brother that's 2 underneath of me that is very charismatic, and he knows everybody in the AUB. So a lot of people in the AUB, and we look very similar. So a lot of the people in the AUB, when I show up somewhere, they're like, they call, oh, hey, Kyle, how are you doing? And they call me by my brother's name because they all know him. He's funny. He is very charismatic. And so they just assume that I am him. So I think if the Browns saw me, Kyle would probably get the credit for it.
I know. I tell him all the time. I'm like, you can just mess with people and then just be like, that wasn't me. That was my brother.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Like, come on, man. I thought we were cool. Why do you say all that on you? I don't have a podcast. What are you talking about?
You're right.
So if there is any feedback from the Browns, they're probably giving it to my brother.
So he's getting it. So obviously it wasn't that bad. I'm sure he would have reached out to you. Like, you need to stop whatever it is you're doing.
Yeah, no, we haven't received anything. Just so that a few of them listened to it, and a few of them, and like I said, Mary's reached out to me and I've heard from a few, but nothing negative, nothing. I
Okay.
guess there was one thing I made a video about the list that husbands make. And one of the Brown kids have a podcast somewhere too. And they said that there was no such thing as lists. But I think that's probably the closest thing that we've had to any sort of, but then Cody just reiterated that there is lists on the very next episode. So
they're
yeah,
roadmaps. He just wanted to
they're called
clarify
roadmaps. Yeah.
to his
But
Right.
if I've heard anything, and I wouldn't even say that was negative, that's just something that they're not familiar with growing up in the way that they did. Because the Brown children, the older ones were submerged into the AUB to some degree, but the younger ones aren't.
Yeah.
So they know nothing really about the
Right.
culture. They know nothing about, because they were removed from the state of Utah when they were so young. And so I think there's a lot of cultural things that happen that they're unaware of just because of that sheer fact that they just
Right.
weren't a part of it. Where I was fully immersed in it my entire life, all the way up until I left for good at 25. So,
And I have younger
Right.
siblings that are, I think my youngest sibling's 22 years younger than me, raised by completely different parents than we were raised in. Wasn't necessarily raised within the cult. And to be honest, 39 kids all growing up in the same cult. And I think we counted, currently there are 3 of them that are still a part of the AUB. One second wife, and one of my brothers has 2 wives.
yeah.
The other brother's still a part of it, but he has no wives. So that's 3 out of 39 that have stuck with the living in the cult. So that's a huge drop in numbers for the AUB. So a lot of time left.
Well, because I think that would also be indicative, like in fairness, when we talked about earlier with Robin and whether she could go back to the AUB. Sometimes in some of these faiths, you can let me know if I'm missing a mark here. But if you're experiencing declines in numbers or memberships, you might open the door for people to come back, especially in Robin's case, if she's willing to bring her kids back into the fold, because that helps to propagate your numbers. Especially being as though out of her 5 kids, 3 of them are girls.
Mm-hmm.
So like you have 3 potential wives right there, and they could help to bring more kids into the faith. So in fairness, it's not just the holy of the holy. Sometimes it's just a numbers game. Like we gotta get more people in the seats, get more butts in the seats.
Yep, that's exactly what it is. So, yeah.
If she can't get a prophet, she probably could get a younger man that could marry one of her daughters and take care of her too.
No.
Say,
That
roll
does
them out,
happen.
huh?
That does happen, but not often.
Yeah, that's rough. I mean, it's like we'll make light of it, but it's on one level, we just so it is very clear. I think we're making light, and I don't want to speak for you guys, but I'll say this: I think we're making light of it because it is so disturbing. Because it lowers women down to almost cattle, at that point, where you're trading them like that whole horse trade. Like I give you a daughter for 3 sons, like that kind of, like it's just weird to talk about it that way, as though your children are like bartering chips. But there is a certain reality that we have to acknowledge when we talk about these certain instances, and the occurrence that it happens, and the reality of why would it happen. If you are in a situation, Robin, she's doing very well financially. But if you take a woman who is in a similar situation with like Robin without the money, and then there's a possibility she can get into a family and she'll be able to take care of herself and provide for herself. And all she has to do is make one of her kids available for the kindly gentleman down the street. There are some people who do that. And that's not just polygamy. That's, that's
Right.
out here too. So
Well,
I
did create a video called a 10 Cow Wife. And
Mhm.
because it is very true. I was definitely reduced to chattel. And it's conversations that we had when we were younger about how many, like literally my sisters and I having a discussion about, well, I'm the 10 cow wife and you're only the 5 cow wife. Like we're literally joking about it as children, not understanding just the grossness of it. And
Right.
so we do banter about it. We do talk about it. But then when I get serious about it, then it lights me up and I
It hurts. Yeah.
I do get really upset about it. And it is one of the major reasons why I left, because I would never subject my daughter to that kind of, that treatment that
Mhm.
she's worth no more than her purity. That's the only thing that's
Right.
any value to her and so, or that she's just one of 10 wives and so I just couldn't imagine that life for her. So that is the biggest reason why I left, is because I look at her life now and her life is so full of possibilities. It's unreal. Both of my girls, I have 2 girls and their lives are so full of possibilities. And I couldn't imagine raising men like that. I didn't want my boys to have that mentality of treating their women like that. And so, my oldest is 33 years old. And even to this day, I'll be like, don't talk to your wife like that. And he's, I'm not saying he's a disrespectful, but I will still correct him at 33
Right.
years old, because I don't want him to be disrespectful to the women in his life. And what's funny is he actually ended up having just 2 girls. And so now he truly understands the value, where my ex-husband is very, very much in the patriarchal mindset of everything. And when my daughter got married, he literally sent her a message telling her now that she must obey her husband at all. This is the fatherly advice that's being passed down to my daughter about her wedding, is that he will now be her husband and she will now need to obey everything he says. And
wow.
Yeah. And so that's why I had to break my children away from that. I could not allow her. And her comeback was, well, what, you've hardly even met this person. What if he was a bad person? And the only advice you're going to give me from father to daughter is he's now your husband, so you must follow everything he says, when you don't even know him. So it doesn't matter if he's a good person or not. What matters is he's the head of the family and he's the priesthood holder. So therefore she must listen to him. So, and I told her, scratch all that bullshit garbage, throw it away. Don't listen to any of that. So,
right.
And they've raised some strong women. So we have amazing daughters.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome. But like, it's in a way it's heartbreaking, because I think that one of the reasons why I started the channel in the first place is from the influence of talking with my daughter. And that's always been a thing for me. Like, I've always found stronger women to be attractive.
Yeah.
My mom was a strong woman, very strong woman, my dad will tell you that too. But I think that when push comes down to shove, it's alarming to a point that you would essentially, the advice that is when you tell your daughter that this person is basically your boss, and this person, you follow his instructions, you do as you're told, you support his play. What you're telling her is that you don't matter. Like, what I mean, that's the side that I'm hearing, and that makes me very sad, from the respect of, you don't matter, and he doesn't have to do anything to earn your respect, earn your compassion, earn your love. He doesn't have to do any of that. He just has to somehow finagle you down the aisle, and once he gets you down the aisle and you exchange vows and paperwork, now all of a sudden he owns you. And I think that that's very sad. It also teaches them that they can't leave these situations to seek their own happiness, and demand that they have their own happiness as well as their own autonomy,
right,
and the control of their own future and what they plan on doing with themselves. Like, I've always said that one of the challenges that I think Cody ran into, because I do genuinely think that he wasn't as angry with the wives choosing not to be part of his life, but he was angry that they chose to leave. And I think he was surprised that they left, because even with Robin, her confusion as to, I can't believe this worked out this way. I think the reason why she's surprised is because there was an understanding that they took them for granted, no matter how I treat you, no matter what I say to you, you're going to be here when I get here, and I'm going to show up. You're going to have whatever I want ready, and I'm going to be able to walk out the door with it whenever I want. I watched them over at Mary's house, like I said about Mary going over to Robin's house, which is actually Cody's house. She knocks on the door, and while they were filming, she was very rarely let inside the house until she had that paycheck for the county pass. And come on in, get yourself something cool to drink, But up until that time, she couldn't get past the front door. But when
Yeah.
Cody went over to her house, every time Cody walked over to her house, and this is after him years, he never stayed with her in Arizona. Not once did he live in the same house with her. But when he goes over to her house, he'll walk into the house, not looking at the doorknob or doorbell or nothing, just walk right in. That's part of the expectation.
Yep.
And I've always said that if you're going to be in those type of relationships, you got to earn your days. Because every day that you're with somebody, every day I'm with my wife, I make a choice to be with my wife. And every day she's with me, despite who I am, she chooses to stay with me. I don't know why, but that's what she chooses to do. And I have to recognize that in every day I have to earn the right to play my position. And the second I stop, the minute, the day, or the week, the month, or the year, I stop earning my place, I will either be replaced or I'm gonna have to find a new place.
Right.
And I think that understanding is just, it's sad when you don't give your kids that empowerment. They can get that respect. I'm sorry, I went off a little bit, but
No,
it is kind of what it is.
I absolutely agree with you. Go.
Yeah, I was just going, you guys know what those covenants were that they made. So he's ticked because they broke that covenant of their beliefs.
Oh, yeah. Because when you go through the temple, ceremony, you make covenants that are very serious, and they're not easily broken. But I mean, even when I got married, I was, 8 days into 17, he was 25. And the minute you kneel over an altar, the minute that we stood up from that altar, I became his piece of property, and he knew it.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone in the room could see it. It wasn't, he didn't try to hide it. I was now an object that he owned. And so, and so many of the men treat the women this way. It's disgusting. And so, yeah, it is. It's very hard because you take these promises that you've made so seriously, because you've made them before God, you've made them before your family. And yeah, they're hard to break. They're not easy to break. And I feel like my ex-husband was the same way. Yeah. He wasn't upset that I didn't want to share life with him anymore. He was upset that I would dare go get a release and try to be, separated from him and risk hell rather than stay with him.
Yeah.
And so but I did get that release finally at 25. I was almost 26 when they finally granted it to me, but it took me years to get it. It was not something that I just made a phone call and went in and got. It took me a long time because it is a good old boys club to some degree. Mm-hmm. And my ex-husband was in the back pocket of the prophet at the time. And so, of course, I'm not going to be issued a release. And I did get a release for adultery. And so, and so I was finally granted that release. But years of begging, years of being angry, and I wasn't going to get a release because I was a lot like Christine, where I was just like, these guys have no control over me. They have no say over my life. I'm out of here. Peace out. But then when I started dating Cory, growing up in the religion and knowing how important that release would have been to my dad, for my dad to even like Cory insisted that I go get one. And so then I did go get one, just for family relations to be. And so, but I'd already left way before, 6 months before I was actually, is when I started dating before I actually got the release. So yeah, there is, there's very much of an entitlement of an ownership of things and people in that culture. So, yeah.
And when women are leaving the men, or even the men leaving the AUB, you are risking your eternal life burning in hell. So that's what you're trained from birth, that if you disobey or if you don't keep those covenants you made, you're risking eternal life in hell. And so they're surprised when this woman would rather risk eternal life in hell to leave me. Are you kidding me? We could have just
Right.
been over there, and we don't even have to talk to each other. You know what I mean? But
Right.
why would you risk hell? So,
Yeah. Because he can have the option to be happy, but
Mhm.
she has the option of risking hell or not. You know, and honestly, Mary was able to get a release as quickly as she did because once again, their situation is televised and people are seeing his bad behavior. And so of course she's going to be able to have those. And so the steps that a lot of the brown women have taken have come, I don't want to say easily to them because it doesn't come easily, but they have advantages that a lot of other women don't have. They have to go in and
Right.
they have to go in and say these things because their lives aren't being televised. So
Mhm.
she said,
yeah, like my mom here.
the word of the man trumps the word of the woman.
Yeah, all the
most of
time.
Right.
So, but Cody has put his life on TV so the priesthood leaders can see the abandonment did happen. And so, but usually if you don't have a TV show where you can see that constantly going on, the man can say, no, that didn't happen. She's
lying.
She's disgruntled.
Yeah.
She's out of harmony
So
with me.
you shouldn't
Yeah.
let her have that release. So.
Right. Right.
Right. Or the she's just jealous. She's just
Yeah,
jealous.
she's just jealous.
That's
She's gonna
probably
get
the
over it.
number one. That's probably the number one thing that these men use. She's just jealous. She
She'll
just
get
needs to
over
go
Right.
get herself right with the Lord. She just needs to go pray. She just needs to go, have a blessing of some sort because then she'll get herself right with God. And one of my favorite sayings is when you need to go get yourself right with God so that I can love you. Because I can't love you or show you affection or show you any sort of, intimate behavior because you're not right with God. So
And
you need to go fix that.
You're
So
not being a good sister wife to the best sister.
Right.
Wife, so
The best sister wife.
right. So
Here's a quick. Oh, go ahead.
no, it's a very patriarchal society. Women literally have very little. And the thing growing up is I always thought, oh, I came from the AUB. We're not as bad as FLDS.
Mhm.
We're not as bad as the Order. We're not as bad as the
Right.
Kingstons or all these other major polygamous families. We're not like that until you take a step out and then you see how suppressed the women are truly.
Actually, yeah.
And how lack of choice truly that you have. You think, I always thought, oh, I always had a choice. I didn't have to get married at 17. But then when I'm out of it and I look at these were my choices, yeah, I got married at 17. So yeah.
That's why you did it. Exactly.
Yeah.
You don't know why you did it. You just did it.
Yeah.
Oh, here's one for you guys, Kate. I'm gonna pop off the screen, but I can still hear you. Kate, 499 Super Chat. I'm sorry if you answered this already. The Browns seem to be increasingly calling the AUB a cult as well. Has it changed or just a realization?
I think that it's they're having a realization more so than anything else. They're starting to break away. And there's, like I said just a second ago, when you're in it, you don't see the lack of choice. You don't see the lack of, suppression. But as soon as you step away from it, then you start to see and recognize the abuse for what it is. You start to recognize the cult for what it is. But when you're deep in it, and especially like there was an episode where Christine's aunt came on and there was a panel of polygamists and they kind of went after each other. And you put yourself in a situation where you are highly defensive of your belief systems because you're feeling attacked. And when my sister first went public, I found myself extremely defensive, even though what was being said was mostly true. I found myself really defensive of the situation because it felt so attacking to me personally. And even though it had nothing to do with me personally, and I agreed with what was being said, I just felt like it was being said in the wrong context, And so I think that that's really where the Browns are coming from, is they're starting to have the realization that it is a cult, that there are cult-like tendencies, and that the controlness of it really does make it a cult. Oh,
yeah.
Right. Oh, you had a sister that came out?
Yeah, that's what got me speaking publicly. Was my sister came out publicly after my dad became the prophet. She went she did a bunch of interviews. And
oh, okay.
Yeah, and so I felt like she was grossly misrepresented and things were not said honestly, or truthfully. And so I just did one public video, and it ended up getting like, I just put it on my Facebook page. I wasn't even trying to I didn't have a social media page of any sort.
Right.
But I just put it on my Facebook page, and then it got thousands of views. And I didn't realize that it would have that kind of attention. And in my video, I said, who knows, maybe one day I'll start a podcast so that I can talk about these things honestly, and they don't have to be, because right now they're sensationalized for clickbait, and you don't have to sensationalize it. The truth is gross enough. You don't have to make it sound worse. And so in that video, I said, maybe one day I'll start a podcast and start talking about it myself. So that's what got me even going on my podcast, was that when my sister came out and did like a little media tour and went to a couple different venues and started talking to a bunch of different people. And so, that's when my dad called me and I created that initial video and said, we were absolutely raised in a cult. There's no question about that. But you don't have to sensationalize or basically lie about what happened, because the truth is hard enough. And that's when my dad called me and said, you will never use the word cult online again. And I was like, shit, now I have to make a podcast and use the word cult all the time.
The time, right?
Yeah.
Just because you said that, thanks, Dad. Yeah.
Thanks for telling me I can't do it, because now I'm going to have to do it. So
she was walking around the house for like 3 hours going, cult, 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 cult. Disobeying.
Culty. Yeah.
I'll say it if I want to. Yeah. So that's
even to your
my podcast came about. So
okay. I mean, that makes sense though, because in fairness, I think that sometimes, I'm not sure which creator you're speaking of, but sometimes in an effort to try to bring awareness to a thing, you feel like you have to kind of put your thumb on the scale. But the problem with that is that as much attention as you may bring to an issue, once it's discovered, kind of what we were talking about with people losing faith in religion, once it's discovered that you were being disingenuous or dishonest about your observations with regard to this particular organization, then it calls into question, well, how bad is it really?
Yeah.
And it becomes a disservice, because you discredit everybody else who's trying to give their stories, because they just say, oh, they're just tagging on with that bull stuff that other person was saying.
Yeah.
So it actually becomes you reverse yourself. In other words, like for those who play Uno.
Yeah. And my sister will eventually come on and do an interview with me too. We'll talk about it. She's been asking me to do it for a while. But I originally only released 5 episodes of my podcast before, and then my brother passed away, and there was just there was just a lot of stuff going on. And so I didn't actually get to it. And then my kids asked me to start a TikTok. So they're like, Mom, you don't have to commit to doing a 30-minute or, hour-long podcast. You can just make short little clips. And so that's kind of what happened. Is I started the podcast, started getting some followings, made a video about, then I was having so many people from the AUB reach out to me, please make comments on Sister Wives. And I'm like, oh, I don't want to. I mean, I don't even watch the show. Like 90% of the people that we know from the AUB don't watch the show because it doesn't feel real. A lot of it is made for TV. And so everyone watched the first season, of course, because it was like, what the heck is happening? So everyone watched the first season, and then it fell off. And I don't really know anyone who watches it. So finally I was just like, really? I have fine. I guess I'll watch it. Then I see this preview and I just blow up. I'm like, this man's lost his damn mind. And so, so that's kind of how we evolved into even speaking about it at all. So, but we will go back to eventually, we will be going back to our experiences growing up in the AUB and how, how we met. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And we'll go through and so our podcast will start being more about what we're just kind of talking about the Sister Wives and recapping it while the season's here. And then once the season's gone, we'll start to do more of our own stories, our own examples of what it's like. And, it's funny. Somebody said, you're not even a prophet's daughter. Your dad just barely became the prophet. I'm like, so he's still a prophet, damn it. So I think it's funny that people have wanted to call into question my credibility on anything. It's hilarious to me, but I'm like, no, please, if you want this experience, you take it and you talk about it. Cause it was
Right.
kind of a hard experience growing up. But yeah, I was married in the AUB and divorced in the AUB. And then, and Cory wasn't. And Cory was a compound kid. I wasn't. So we just have so many different ways that we can talk about.
Different perspectives of it.
Mhm.
Well, I think it's interesting though that somebody will criticize you like, well, your dad wasn't even a prophet for that long. Well, I'm sorry, how long was your dad the prophet?
You're not really a
like
prophet's daughter.
it's a weird criticism.
I know.
Yeah.
I laughed so hard, but he did become on the leadership when I was 19 years old. And so it was definitely, that was hard when he became on the leadership. That's when I started questioning everything and went, whoa, back
Right.
this up. How the hell is my dad on the leadership? And so that's really when I started questioning. And then I left for the first time when I was 22, because I was just like, I can't do this anymore. But then I ended up going back because I
Right.
ended up having a situation with a baby that was sick. And I thought God was, my husband was now hiring prostitutes. My baby was sick. I was like, what am I doing? Like, not this husband, my ex-husband. And so
Like, whoa.
no, not this one. And so my ex-husband was doing all of these things. And I was like, what? I thought God was punishing me for leaving. And so I did go back for another 2 years. And then I finally left for
Okay.
good at 25.
Because I think that if you guys want to come back over, we can have that conversation. But I think that that's an interesting conversation as well, like the recidivism and the return of why people choose to go back once they get out. And because we talked already, kind of we talked on it, but we discussed how difficult it is to break free in the first place. But then once you're out, why do you decide to go back? How do you decide to go back? And it's just understanding that sometimes situations and circumstances, in addition to like in just the mere description you gave just now, I can pick out at least 3 or 4 reasons why you may have chose to go back. One, you said that it was your child got sick, so it's a stability issue. There's a security issue. There's also the point where you can look at it and say there's a financial aspect, making sure that your child has the finances there to be able to take care of them. Your husband is your ex-husband, not Cory, but the other dude, the other gentleman, is out doing freaky leaks with the local ladies of the evening. And you can look at that and say that maybe part of the reason why he's acting out the way he is, which is thereby damaging my family, is because I'm no longer there. So you have a built-in guilt there because you're at, on some level, the men are supposed to be, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but just to understand that I have for most religions like this to use the patriarchal system, men are in charge of the family, but women are the maintainers of the family. They're the ones who are supposed to be doing the day to day. So if you're not there and you're not taking care of your family because you're not present because you left, then if your family starts to fall apart or become in disrepair, then some women in those circumstances feel as though it's their responsibility to come back and fix the family so that they can maintain the family.
Yep.
But I don't know if I'm going too far. Maybe I'm swinging too far for the fences.
No, I think that's exactly right. And I did go back with that mentality of it. I needed to fix things. And then I was the only one doing it. He wasn't doing it. And so finally, 2 years later, year and a half later, I'm like, I can't do this anymore. I'm not going to do this anymore. How many times am I going to take him back, hoping that I'm the one trying to fix the things because it's my responsibility to make sure he's happy. And so unfortunately, so yeah, it's a mind, it messes with your head on levels that most people don't comprehend unless you are raised in a highly controlled cult like that. So yeah, it does.
Right.
There's things that I would never have tolerated. And yet for some reason I'm in there tolerating them because of that. But it really did take me looking at my little girl going, yeah, I don't want this for her. I won't have this for her. And so, and making those changes for her sake more than my own. And then it eventually turned into making them more for my own. But for initially it was for her because I couldn't do that to her. So yeah.
Right. No, I know what you mean. It's ironic you say that. And I'm sorry, Cory, if I stepped on you a little bit. But it's ironic that you say that because I think that as a parent, there are certain things that you're willing to endure.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? I'm willing to put up with a lot. And I'm willing to go through what I need to go through. And it doesn't seem that bad because it's happening to me. But at the same time, if anybody was to ever try to do that to your child, you would, walk barefoot through a field of glass, broken glass,
Mhm.
to get to them. You know what I mean? You would never let that happen because you understand what the pain is. And I think that that's where, sometimes that step back and looking at your children is what can help to shape a better you. Like I say that with my involvement with my kids, and this is why I think kids are such a blessing in many respects, especially if you have, they're people, if you have the right people. Um, it's such a blessing to have those folks in your life because just as much as I think that I helped to shape my kids, I know that my kids have helped to shape me and my outlook on life and how I perceive things and how I go about things and why I do things. So just as I hope I make them better people, I know that they've made me a better person
Mhm.
just by being involved with my life. And I think that that's where, when you look at your kids and you say, you know what, I want more for them. I want better for them. So I'm not going to expose them to this, even though if it was just me, I might tolerate it for another 15 years. But when I'm thinking about them, oh hell no! Like I'm not going to have them go through this for 5 minutes. So you make those kind of decisions.
Right.
So
Well, and in all fairness to my parents, with my mom sitting right here, she thought when they went into this religion, they thought they were giving us better than what they had.
right,
That's the whole goal into going into this religion and, being raised Mormon or LDS and then choosing this religion as an option. That was what they believed. So, and, I've had to work through a lot of those feelings towards my parents. Like, how could you do this to us? Like, why would you do this to
mm,
us? Did you hate us? Did you not want us? All of those questions are going through my mind as a teenager, as I'm learning to process through, and one of the best comments that I've ever heard when I was 20 years old is when, we do the best we can with what we have and what we know. And when we
right,
know better, we'll do better. And so,
right,
here my parents thought they were giving us something that turned out to be more destructive than not. And so, yeah, that's why the majority of the kids don't choose that. Out of my dad's 34 siblings that I grew up with, then like there's 3 that still live that way. That's it. So the
right,
majority of the children do choose out of this
Mhm.
lifestyle because it is so destructive. But in all fairness, nobody goes into it believing that it's going to be destructive. They go into it
right,
believing that it's going to lead to community and, a huge family that supports each other. It takes a village to raise children. All of the things all the positives and pluses that they wanted to have through this community, that's what they truly believed that they were going to be creating. It's just you get that one bad apple in there, that one bad seed in there that wants to come in and make it all about them and their own needs and their children's needs, and then it blows the whole thing up. So
right, right.
Sweet and
Well,
shy.
I mean, I think that there's all. Oh, I'm sorry, Corey. What were you saying?
I just said the sweet and shy ones.
Yeah, yeah, yes. The cherished, beloved, sacred cow.
Yeah.
I,
I like that.
because I think that there's a point too where you have like the you know because there's a lot of folks who stay in relationships longer than they should, all for the sake of their children, because in their minds they look at it like, I don't want to leave this relationship because I don't want my kid to come through a broken home. So I'll stay in a relationship. And no matter how bad it is, it can't be any worse than if I go out and try to make it on my own. Because again, I understand that there's financial challenges and obstacles that can prevent people from leaving. Not everybody has access to, well, if I'm walk out here and start my own business, not everybody has that opportunity. And especially if you're in a situation where you don't have the educational background, or in some cases, if you don't have the work history to support your ability to walk out and get a job, because that's something that really doesn't get talked about either. That if you are, say, in your situation or a similar situation, you're 18 years old, you graduate high school, right? I know you said your situation is a little different, but I'm just saying, like, you graduate high school at 18, you get married, you have children, you stay out of the workforce, you never really had a job, maybe except for like the little McDonald's jobs or something like that you were doing for part-time money. then you leave the workforce to raise your family. You're out of the workforce for 15 years and you've only had that little part-time job experience. Then at the humble age of what, let's say you're 20, 35 years old, all of a sudden you and your husband get divorced and you have to go get a job with what experience? You have zero work experience. You don't have an education, so and you don't have anything to really give them. So you're coming into like entry level money at an entry level position, and you already have a family to take care of.
Yeah.
And sometimes that hindrance can be what keeps you in that making those decisions. There's a lot of reasons why people decide to stay in situations that may be hard or may
Right.
be difficult, and other people look at it like, I don't know why you stayed so long because you don't understand my situation. That's why I stayed so long.
Yeah. And for me, it was really hard to make the decision because I didn't want to raise my children without a father. I didn't want them to
Mhm.
I didn't want them to be raised in a single home. And so that was really hard part for me. And my ex-husband was not shy about it. He was like, go ahead and try to leave me. I dare you. How are you going to feed these children? How are you going to support these kids? And he was so adamantly against financially supporting me in any way. He actually became the number 2 person in the state of Utah for back owed child support because
Wow.
he refused to give me or help me in any way, shape, or form because he didn't want to contribute to me leaving him. And by
Right.
financially supporting me in any way, that would be contributing to my ability to leave him. And so that's why
Right.
I had to work 3 jobs for a while in order to even just keep a roof over my kids' heads. And so, but he was blatant about it. He would blatantly say that, I dare you to try to leave me. How are you going to feed yourself? How are you going to feed these kids? I'm like, you would really do that to your own children just to get back at me for leaving? And he did. And he did it for years and years and years. He went to jail a lot. I was not a nice ex-wife, and I would take him to court and I would force the situation, and he would go to jail. He went to jail quite a few times, but he would rather go to jail than give me the ability to leave him. So yeah. And I mean, that's a whole other podcast in and of itself, but that just tells you how much these men will cling on to that idea of controlling this woman and what she can and can't do. And so,
Right.
yeah, it was not an easy situation. And then poor Cory was a trooper. Cory dealt with that man for years. And Cory is just a nice guy, but yeah, we'll see how David does with Cody, because I'm not sure that David and David reminds me so much of Cory in a lot of ways in his very mild nature. But we'll see how well that turns over, because I don't know how Cory dealt with that man.
It's because I love the kids, and I really do love each one of the kids, and I wanted them to know that if you're call out their biological dad as crap, we as kids go, well, does that mean half of me? That I'm half of who that person is? Am I a piece of crap? Do I have the same? And I didn't want that. I wanted those kids to know they are amazing human beings. I loved them. And they missed, they wanted to hang out and do, because he could be fun. And so, yeah, when they asked, I was like, yeah, absolutely, invite him over.
Oh, he spent a lot of holidays at our house.
Because I'd rather them be around the people that they love, but be in a safe area or safe environment.
Yeah.
And so here I'm using Robin's words, doggone it. But I just wanted them to be hanging around. And so I love the kids, so I'd do anything for them. So.
Right. Well, because first thing I'll say, Cory, you're married to a very famous lady. She's the daughter of the prophet, and she's the number 2 with a bullet on behind back child support. So you know, famous people. That's what I'm saying. But I do think it's commendable, especially because it's a special gift if you can step into a child's life as a bonus parent, and provide support to that child, not necessarily trying to replace anybody, but you're just merely there to add additional support to the child to help them to develop and grow into the people that they want to be. I think that that's very important. But I also think that it's important. Kind of one of the things that I saw about Christine's situation with David, and I'm willing to guess that it might be like this with you guys. Again, correct me if I'm wrong or overstating. But one of the things that I like about David's situation with Christine is that it seems as though he's not, when he says you go out and you take care of getting that business or whatever, it's not from a place of, okay, that's on you and that's your thing, but it's more from a place of love and support where he's saying, I understand that you may feel like you can't, that you don't feel like you're worthy and you feel like you're unable, or it's just not for you. But I'm here to support you and tell you that you can do it. You are worthy, you are able, and you are capable. And
Yeah.
I'm going to be here to cheer you on, and if necessary, I'll provide you the support, whether it's through me getting in there, working with you, or me just stand on the sidelines and telling you that you can do it when you feel frustrated. I think that that's important because, especially as you look for a partner, I kind of said this on Sunday, as you look for a partner, you want somebody who's going to help to build you up
Right.
and somebody who's going to help to push you along and push you forward. And if you have kids, you want somebody who's going to help your kids do the same thing. And at the same time, as a stepfather or as a bonus father, you want that other man to take responsibility for the lives that he's helped to create, as well as the extra component of these kids are also relying on you because you're their father at the end of the day. I can step in and I can help out, but when push comes down to shove and they look out, they're doing a presentation at school, or they're singing their heart out, and the tree at the play, they look out there and they want to see their parents.
Yeah.
They want to see everybody who's in their life, whether it's the bonus parent, the natural mom, bio dad. The more people that can come out and support those children, the better off those kids are.
Yeah.
So when people say that they, Mel, you were saying that you were taking them to child support. Sometimes it's not about the money.
Right.
It's not about just getting the child. Sometimes it is about the money. Let's not kid each other. But sometimes it's not about just the financial aspect, but it's also the responsibility aspect of, I need you to step up and be the person that you ironically promised that you would be. I know it wasn't a sacred covenant, but you promised that when you made this child with me that you would step in and be that parent for this child. And that's all I'm asking you to do. And sometimes you have to take them to court to remind them of that agreement.
Yeah.
So
then I can honestly say, I don't think we've been divorced for a little over 25 years. I don't think he ever came to one single performance of our kids at all. Where Cory's like showing up when I was even unaware that he was even at the school. And then so it was really great to have Cory step in and help with that. And that's why when we watch Sister Wives, it breaks our heart because we understand from that child's perspective what that we've said on all of our videos, the children are the collateral damage in this situation, whether they're adults or whether they're not adults, they're still their children. And they still put their parents in a God file that matters. And so when you watch these kids struggle with that back and forth, when we watch Robin's 3 older kids struggle with their bio dad and the situation that Robin put them in on national television under those circumstances, the kids really are the collateral. And it's gut-wrenching to watch that because we've watched what our children have gone through for the last 26 years of having a divorced parent situation under these circumstances. And so, it's really tragic at the end of the day when you have somebody who does step out and never steps back in. And, or he goes, I'll step back in, but I'm going to leave the door open with a hand out for you, but I won't let go of Robin's hand. I mean, what a piece of that was one of the worst things I've ever heard him say. Like, I will still reach out for you as my child, as long as but I'm not letting go of Robin for that. And kids don't want to hear that. They want to hear, I'm going to do whatever I can for you because I love you because you're my child. And so I was so disgusted. So he blows my mind on so many different levels with the women in his life, but the children are a whole nother level of absolute disgust, the way this man treats his children. And so, it's been it's gross. And I watch my dad do it. I watch my uncles do it. I watch every man that I know. It's funny because everyone's like, then why did you go marry another AUB guy? Isn't he the same way? But I'm like, no, Cory got excommunicated because he was too funny. He was too nice. He was such a gentleman. Like, he has all these characteristics that just don't fit the average AUB man.
I had the wrong last name, so
So he got kicked out. So
and I think at parenting from a different point of view. I grew up. I did. I love my dad. I love my mother's. I wish I was one of 39. I wish I had more time to spend with my dad. I didn't. I wanted so every time I'm with my kids, what is it that I wanted from a dad that I looked up to as that dad? And so I try to take that and pass it on to my kids. I'm proud of you guys, man. You guys are amazing human beings. I love you so much. I want to spend time with you. And so I took what I was looking for as a little kid in a polygamist situation and turned around and tried to be that father that I wish I had more of when I was growing up. So I got to spend some time with my dad. He did tell me he was proud of me, but it was so little, especially in my teenage years when I felt like I needed it the most. But I had an amazing older brother that stepped in to that role for me and was a good man to me as a teenager. So. Yeah. Sorry, choking up a bit.
Get Cory choked up about our kids.
So.
Well, I think that is also a mirror reflection of kind of like you do what you learn to do, and you learn to. There's an aspect where you can say to your brother that you learn to do that because of his good example. So it allowed you the freedom of expression to be able to step into that role to be that for somebody else's kids. The same way your brother was there for you, you were able to be there for Melanie's kids and do that for Melanie's kids. So I think that that's commendable. I also think that, when push comes down to shove, it sounds like a hero story. Like there's an old writer's thing that said basically the hero and the villain basically have the same origin story. The only real substantive difference is usually the hero and the villain both lose something, sometimes orphaned or whatever the case may be. But it's not the fact that they lost. It's what they do with that loss that turns them either into a hero's arc or a villain's arc. So if you use that pain to go out and hurt other people because you've been hurt, you're a villain. Whereas if you use that pain to say, you know what, I've learned a lesson and I don't want anybody else to go through what I've gone through, and you try to do the right thing by other people, then that puts you on the arc of the hero. So I think that that's something that can also be learned by watching what happened in the show. Because as you guys said, between the two of you and your families, your siblings, you guys have 70 people who are 70 people who are part of the AUB, and only 6 are still there. Like that says a lot. Or even as we watch the kids and you hear about you have questionable parenting from Cody, and you see how amazing some of these kids are with their kids, and you say, well, where did they get it from? Did they get it from their mom, or did they get it from their mom in addition to, I want to be the kind of parent that I wish I had when I was little. I want to do for my kids the things that weren't done for me. So I want to make sure that they have those opportunities. So I think that there's a lot there.
Yeah.
Well, right on.
Plus,
let's just...
those 3 kids were amazing, and I just didn't see why he didn't see how awesome those kids were. They have great sense of humor, so
they get it from me.
So you're pulling from Mel's side, but the craziest part about it is in some of these situations, and then, again, not just in polygamy, but just in some situations, relationships in general. You'll have people who are so angry with their former paramour that they just take it out on the kids.
Yeah.
Like they're so mad with their ex that they refuse to be a part of the kid's life because they know in a crazy way, by me not being present for my kids hurts my ex. And it makes them feel a certain kind of way.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And that's why, we talked about on this last episode of Sister Wives we talked about how Christine is recreating that foundation for the children because they had that family dynamic that is now gone. It's broken up. They can't go to Cody and Robin's house and have the same love and affection or foundation that they had when they were with their moms. And so,
or safety,
or safety. Yeah.
Mm.
And so when you watch Christine recreating some of this with David, I think it's amazing to watch the dynamics that they bring to the show for that reason, because David is just, I mean, he's holding one of the twins, one of McKelty's twins, like it's no big deal. He knows exactly what he's doing. And so he's coming in and he's loving these children as much or more than they've ever been loved. And so him and Christine are creating this solid. And it makes me sad to see that Cody on his couch interviews criticizes her for that, because he has FOMO, because he has a fear of missing out on these events. Instead of being grateful that their children now have a safe place to land and they're all being loved, he's feeling sad about his missing out on it. And it just shows the level of selfishness that some of these men have, when it's like, it's not about his kids. It's not about his kids finding a safe place where, hey, we love each other. Like, even though my mom's left my dad, I communicate with all my siblings from all of my different mothers, and we all communicate. When we have a party, we all get together. When we do our family is very similarly dynamic as the Browns in that regard. You can't, like, we used to joke growing up that you couldn't tell which sibling belonged to which mother, because we were all so interactive.
All in together.
Yeah. And so that has that's been really sad for us when we've watched the show, that Cody's made it about himself and not about where his children are. I mean, this show has damaged his children. There's no question about it. Oh.
No, I agree. I think that there's also a weird part where Cody talks about the kids or whatever, but he never refers to the relationships as the relationships with him, and even how they interact with each other, what they mean to each other. But usually it's a pithy response that he's missing out on. Like, I miss going out and jumping in the middle of the crowd, having a bunch of people surrounding me. I miss going places and being able to take a whole place over because there's like 20 or 30 of us showing up for dinner.
Yeah.
And we're able to brag about, I have all this, this is all my family and I own all these people. But it's never, I miss these individual relationships with my son, my daughter. I miss having this conversation or the quirky things, because everybody has that thing. You know what I mean? Like, you might have a kid that's funny and you like, they make this comment and it's hilarious and I love their personality. The other child maybe they can play the piano and it's something that you miss about them. But I never heard Cody refer to any individual thing that he misses about his kids as though they're individuals.
Right.
So it's always how they play into his situation and what they mean to him. And so that's always been a weird sticking point for me.
He did say on last week's episode that he missed the love of his children. He didn't say, I miss loving my children or I miss caring for my children. He missed the love of his children. So once again, it's a very selfish, self-centered. He misses being loved. And so, it's so hard to watch him without just wanting to ring. Like, I literally would love to see him in person one time and just be like, what are you doing? I know Corey's like, I never want that to happen. Melanie will rip him off. I'm like, I probably would if I saw him in person. It's insane to me that he just literally doesn't care about his kids like that, and yeah, so it's hard to watch. It's hard to stomach. No, being on that, my dad didn't know a lot of individualities about us children growing up. And that was really hard to not, I probably got a little bit more attention because I was one of the older ones. And then the younger ones got a little bit more attention, but my attention was not always positive. My attention was 90% negative from my father, because it was like, you're not doing this, you're not doing this, you're not, and gave me lists of things that I needed to be doing. And see, it started very young. Yeah. Yeah. And so, it's definitely it's hard to watch it's hard to watch the way he treats his children, for sure. So
you grow up
giving you a list training.
Yeah.
To get love from parents, and then you grow up a list to get love from your husband.
Yeah.
From your husband.
Yeah.
Well, she said she was getting list training. Like, he was, running her through the paces. So Dad was giving her lists and then preparing you for when you get married, you get lists. And then, I don't know, I guess when you get to heaven, you get more lists. Like,
yeah, right. You're constantly in work.
Right. So when you get to the pearly gates and you have to give him the secret name, and then he'll be like, "Well, here's your list."
So true.
Got my report card. I'll
Oh, we
check.
have yeah, right. And I'll check it twice. I'll check it twice. I swear I will. Call me Santa Claus. DS $10 super chat. Cody proved that you can't bring 19th century polygamy in the 21st century. Cody's strategy moving to Vegas was fatally flawed. Isolation is necessary for patriarchy-based polygamy to succeed. Oh, okay.
I would
Oh,
agree.
good.
I agree with that. And that's why I say a lot right now is really hard because we all have cell phones. We all have the internet at the palm of our hands. When you have less information to make your decisions with, your choices are limited too. So you will make the right choices with the information that with the dogma or the information you're given and you received. And so, yeah, I absolutely believe that. I believe it was the move to Vegas is really what ultimately ended his family. If he would have stayed here with Robin, unfortunately, all those women would have probably stayed married with him all the way to the end. I mean, look at my mom, 52 years. And so they would have stayed married to him all the way to the end and been miserable and unhappy and watched all the bullshit that he did to them. And they would have done it because they didn't have options or choices. And now that we have options and choices more, because we all have the internet typically in the palm of our hands, one of the biggest teachings in the AUB is not to have social media, not to have these types of things, because when we educate, then we make different choices. So,
Right.
Lucifer comes through a lot of teachings that are anti-church, and you should always be reading the Book of Mormon and the Bible to get your truth, listening to your leaders. And if you're looking outside of that, you can be tricked. But when you do look outside, it's like, oh, wait a minute, are we being tricked here or
tricked over there?
Yeah, where's the trick at? And so then you start asking questions, and if you get too deep, too many questions, then you're like, okay, you're no longer worthy. You're out of here. So
you get excommunicated.
Then you get nefarious revelation and you get excommunicated. So that's what Cory's dad was excommunicated for. Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow. You think it was a meeting where they were like, he knows too much.
Yep, exactly. Exactly.
Gotta get rid of him. He's asking the right questions.
Yeah, exactly.
He's gonna mess around and figure it out. But I do think that there's because also in addition to like there being you having outside sources and information, I think that one of the big bonuses of them moving to Vegas, especially for the kids, is that they didn't have a branch of the AUB in Las Vegas at the time. So it wasn't as though they could be surrounded by that community. And like you said, with Utah, by staying in Utah, if you decide to leave, one of the brake systems that would be implemented at that point would be the community that you're a part of. Because from that respect, when you leave that husband, you could very well be ostracized from the community. So you could have, like, you leave the husband, you said the husband is in charge of the family and everything flows through the husband. If you leave your husband and your husband is friends with Charles, who's the husband of your best friend, Charles tell his wife that you can't hang out with her anymore.
Yep.
She's no longer accessible to you. So you wind up getting shunned not only by your family, but you get shunned by your community, and it takes away your support system. So like the whole moving to Vegas thing for the Brown family was a huge bonus for the children and for the wives, because it was a pathway to freedom that doesn't necessarily present itself to people who are still within the community, not necessarily just in the marriages, but within the community, within the church.
Absolutely. So. Yep, absolutely. I was the first one to leave out of about 350 grandchildren. And I was the first one to get married.
Wait, hold on.
Yeah.
350 grandchildren.
That was the last count. I'm sure there's more since then. I was looking at my mom for confirmation, but yeah. And no one had ever gotten married in the polygamous group and then left. And so when I left, it was really hard because I was the first one to do it. And my grandma was horrible to me. She was really mean to
Mhm.
me. And she had just married the prophet like a month before I got married.
Before you
And
left.
so we'd gotten married right around the same time. And then, yeah, when I left, she was so disappointed in me. And for years after, if I would go to any events that had a lot of AUB people there, I felt awkward with Cory because everyone there knew me as my ex-husband's wife. They didn't know me as
Right,
Cory's wife or Cory as my husband, because I was always referred to as his wife, as my ex-husband's
right.
wife. And so that was a hard adjustment because, I now opened a gateway for other kids to leave. And how dare I do that for other people to be able to leave? So it was a hard adjustment for sure. And where you're in Vegas and you don't have that community destruction, is what for me, it's very destructive. Like you can either have a community support or community destruction. And yeah, when you leave, people around you are advised. We were all advised when Christine's mom left the AUB. I remember being advised that we couldn't talk to her. Do you remember that? Yeah, I remember being advised because she had evil spirits that possessed her, so we could no longer talk to her.
Right. Well,
So,
they didn't want you to hear the truth.
yeah.
That's why the first year of our marriage was a little tough, because until we had a daughter together, I had to go by his name, her ex-husband's
Right.
name. So I got to start using my name once we had a daughter together.
No, that's not true.
Then the seal is officially broken. Right? Did you hold your daughter up like on the Lion King? Like, I've done it.
I can use my first
They're
name
mine.
again.
Right, they're mine now. But it's because it's actually a sad situation too, because even talking like I heard you mention talking earlier about Christine's aunt, and when they went down to Lehigh and they had the whole conversation at UNLV, and they were talking and how Christine had went against Kristen, I think that's her mom's name, our aunt's name, at the time, and even her mom's situation with not being able to go to the wedding, being excluded. I think that there's a huge power in that. Like just to keep that in mind and keep pressure on that whole point is that for you to be able to cut people off of their entire world, because essentially that's what you're doing. You're cutting them off from their world, and you're telling them like you have to stay in this situation, or you can no longer associate with anybody whom you used to talk to.
Yeah.
Anybody who you were friends with, family members who you relied on, folks that you could pick up the phone and say, hey, could you come over and watch my kids? Those people are no longer available to you. So essentially what you're doing is you're cutting the legs out from under those folks who choose to leave. And I would even go a step further in saying that when Mary had the whole catfish incident and there was a possibility that she could leave, I've always said that one of the things that Mary's leaving represented was an example, because when she left and it didn't work out and she had to stay around, then that was a lesson to all the other women who are in the family that if you leave, this could be you. What you'll realize is when you go out into the world, you're going to be tricked and deceived. You're going to hear lies and everybody's going to fool you. And you're going to discover that it's no better out there than it is right here where it's safe.
Yeah.
And whether you're happy or not, you have to appreciate the fact that you're safe. So from that respect, I think that it had the boomerang effect. Whereas when Christine left, all of a sudden she leaves, she gets a boyfriend, her life is going pretty good, she's happy, she's feeling young, she's looks like she reversed the time, reverse clock on her face like 10 years, and all of a sudden she's looking young, and she losing weight because she dropped that 190 pounds worth of dead weight.
Yeah.
And she's living that good life. And all of a sudden everybody else like, oh, well, leaving ain't that bad.
Yep.
Come on in, the water's great. So there's both sides of that, where they try to prevent you from leaving by creating bad examples and bad experiences for the people who are so fortunate enough to depart.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I would just add to that, it's not only your world that is changing, it's in their teachings, it's your salvation. So when you leave, when you are now being taken away your connection with your maker, and you're being turned over to the buffetings of Satan. Now you will be miserable for not only this worldly life, but for eternity. So you are not only sacrificing what's going on in this world today, but your whole eternity if you disobey, if you leave. If you leave, you are cut off from being happy for eternity too.
Yeah.
So it's a huge fear for people within in the AUB to make that kind of severance. And so where some of them are like, you know what, I don't even believe this anymore, like Christine, but that's scary for Robin. Robin's got that foot in both sides. She's not willing to, where I think Cody's probably gone. He doesn't want to be a polygamist anymore. And that's scaring her too. All of a sudden, this lightning bolt husband is not as safe as she thought he was. So,
Yeah.
Right.
no, it's scary.
He's not lightning bolt. He's not lightning bolt. He's static electricity.
I know. We laugh about that all the time. And then I got my lightning bolt. I was like, she says it so flippantly, like it's, I just thought that was silly.
Here's the thing.
Yeah.
It's a very I don't know what's the polite euphemism. It's a very pithy way to look at it, I guess. In a way, it's to be very real about it. It's a very juvenile way to look at a lot of the relationships.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of weird. Like maybe it's just me being jaded. I'll even say it that way. I'm jaded, so I'm looking at it and say, "Oh, I felt the lightning bolt. It was love at first sight." Well, that probably wasn't a lightning bolt.
Right.
You know, that's not what I would call it. Lustful, yeah, for sure. Like, you know, that's the thing. But a lightning bolt, maybe not.
Right.
It's weird to happen in church though. Like you going into church, like ooh. I get you some wine and crackers. You know, I mean, like what?
Exactly. It's funny.
We were always taught if you got hit by lightning in church, it was for something bad. So
Yeah.
you were doing something wrong.
Right. That was your first sign when you get struck by lightning in church. Well, first thought through my mind is probably, aside from the lightning bolt, apparently is maybe I shouldn't be here. Like maybe I've been messing up so bad, and you know, Lord, don't He closed the door to me.
Yeah.
But we have Elizabeth with the 499 super sticker. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Then we have Elizabeth. Thank you. Then we have D Matina. I like that name. $2 super chat. Melanie, when or will you go back to Spotify?
Yes. Yep. As soon as we start doing our sit down podcast where it's just not these lives. And we just ordered our microphones that will be here today for that. So I'm expecting that we will start recording those, and then I'll upload those back to Spotify again. Although the last episode that I tried to upload to Spotify, it didn't upload. So I have an extra one on my YouTube channel that didn't, Spotify for some reason, it just didn't upload to it. But yeah, we will be here pretty quickly. We've just had we've had an audio issue since we started doing this, and it has been a struggle for us. So we finally ordered, we've been taking all of our super chats and everything that people have been giving us and saving up, and we finally got some microphones that will be here today. So. And
we're learning how to talk.
Yeah.
Well, I'm talking louder. She's talking normal. I'm sitting closer to the mic. So hopefully everybody can hear us as we're talking. So
yeah, I have to take a big sit back because I talk and I think it's just because I do wear hearing aids. So I do tend to talk a little bit louder. And so, yeah, it's hilarious. So we do try to sit a little bit back, but when the microphones get here, we'll each have our own. It will hopefully be a whole better setup. And then, yes. So short answer is yes. So.
All right. They said they got the game changes on the way. So be ready.
Yep.
Be ready.
Yeah.
Next up, we got Eve R, $5 super chat. Thank you so much for speaking up for these women. I know it can be easy to judge when it's not our own situation. My father was like your ex, Mel. So yeah, and I think that's also part of it too, is that like in some of these circumstances, especially with Christine and Mary Janelle, I think there's a lot of people who are never in polygamous relationships, but even as monogamists or people who are in long-term relationships, they can identify with some of the elements that went into the breakdown of their families or the breakdown of their relationships that I think exists. Like I think that there's a lot of crossover. So I don't necessarily have to have 5 wives for me to understand what it's like to have an argument or a disagreement with with your partner. Like you don't have to be married to 5 people. Now clearly it's going to be way more complicated if you got 5 people yelling at you. But you understand what it takes in order for you to make those relationships work and amend those relationships. And if anything, I think that I felt like early on, the Brown family used to kind of slight or take shots at like monogamy as though it was easy and polygamy is more difficult. From my respect, I think they're equally hard in different ways, but I think monogamy is hard because there's certain things you have to do. Like I have to address, if there's an issue in my house, I have to address that issue in my house.
Mhm.
I don't have the privilege of being able to walk out of my house and pretend like it's not a problem, because if I walk out of the house and pretend like it's not a problem, the locks might get changed when I get back. So,
And I've always said that. I think, a lot of people are like, oh, I can't imagine dealing with that many women. But so many of the men don't deal with it. They just, I don't want to deal with you today. So then they go to the next wife's house, or they just don't go to that wife's, the wife who's having an issue. They just don't go to her house at all. And so it's a culture that really allows men to avoid being accountable for anything, and women to some degree, because anything can happen in the house while the dad's gone. And then when he comes back, he's like, wait a second, I didn't agree to this. What's happening? And then she's like, well, you weren't here either. So it really is you're accountable for I think that's why everything's so strict about your eternal soul, is because you have to self-check yourself all the time. There's no accountability outside. Right. And I did make a video on that, where when you're left to your own devices, because now you're no longer having to report to somebody who's above you, it shows who your true character is. Am I making this decision because I want what's best for my husband or my children? Or am I making this decision because I think I'm going to go to hell if I don't? And then it really shows who your true character and who you are as a person. And we're seeing that right now. We're seeing who Christine is as a person when she takes a step back from the leadership. We're seeing who Cody is as a person when he takes a step back from the leadership. He's more unhinged now than he has been almost the entire show, and so we're seeing who these people, their characters are, when they have nobody with a thumb on them telling them what they have to do.
Growing up in polygamy, to me, being a monogamist, we're working together. We're constantly communicating. If we're having troubles, we're communicating or working on that. We're communicating on raising kids. Growing up in a polygamous family, and my parents weren't divorced. I've talked to people whose parents were divorced. It seems similar to me. We had a dad that was around every once in a while, but the mother was there raising us on her own, disciplining us on her own, having us do things. And then when the dad would come around, yes, sometimes it was good, sometimes it wasn't. That's when you're going to get your butt beat. But for the most part, we were raised by women on their own, and the dad came around every once in a while. I felt like, and this is just me, I felt like that it was almost probably how it is similar growing up in a divorced family, where the mom is running the house, taking care of stuff, and the dad comes in on weekends. So,
right.
We're not so funny.
Well, the funny part about that is that a lot of times, being the non-custodial parent, you always have the benefit of being the fun parent, because you don't have to deal with a lot of the day-to-day. So when you do show up, it's, hey, let's go do this, or hey, let's go do that. Let's do some kind of activity. So you're now the fun parent who, you don't understand. Dad is super cool. You're just so mean because, mom is telling you to go to bed, brush your teeth, do your homework, pay attention in school, et cetera, et cetera. Dad show up, he ain't talking about none of that. He's just talking about like, hey, did you see the ball game last week? That's the fun parent. And I do think that there's also a weird point where when you talk about like the men having a benefit in being able to hide in polygamy, I think that there's also a hidden hand in that. Where on the reverse side, there is room for, especially depending on your position as the wife in those families, for wives to hide in those families as well. If you're the favorite wife and you have favor, when your husband goes away, if you have access to the bank book or the checkbook, you can make orders. You could have Amazon hitting your house every day, and he's not there to keep track of what's going on and what's coming in and going out. There's a lot of things that you can get away with. I think I heard you guys talk before on one of your podcasts that sometimes you have wives do mean things to one another and then play like, I have no idea. What do you mean? I'm confused. I threw a brick through a window. I thought she needed some air. I didn't know, that kind of thing. But you can hide in those situations too, because then you're the favorite wife, you create a problem. The husband comes back and asks you guys what's going on, and you get to play, I don't know. And because he's not there every day and he's not in on the problems, the dramas, the day-to-day issues, then it's easy for you to hide. And I think that we saw kind of that storyline when we talk about Robin, because she got to hide a lot. I think that's part of the reason why I've always said that that's kind of also why she might want him to have additional wives. Maybe she doesn't want to share him sexually with other women, but I think there's part of Robin that like to send him out to somebody else's house, even if he stays on the couch, Christine, that he's out of her house and she gets to do whatever she wants in her house, and she don't have to worry about serving his needs and kissing his butt and following behind him, because she gets to have all the freedom in the world as almost as a single woman, independent woman on my thing. And he's doing his thing with the other women. And then when he comes back, she gets to be the favorite wife and do all the favorite wife things.
Yeah.
And be, kind of like the dad who shows up every other weekend.
So true.
But let me give these folks a little something for the super chats. Thank you guys. All right. That was awesome. So we've been going for a while, and I'm gonna give you guys a break, because I will hit you, but I'll be on these things. I do the super lives, and my wife talks to me about it all the time. James, you need to let it go.
I know.
20-hour lives are ridiculous, but I definitely want to have you guys back because I enjoyed the conversation. Hopefully, you guys had a good time.
Oh, we did. Thank you.
Yeah, I thought it was fruitful. I know I had fun. And plus, I have pages of notes that I didn't really get to ask you guys about stuff because I was so excited to have you on. So we have a bunch more stuff to talk about. But before I let you guys go, I have your YouTube page listed down below in the description. If you guys go to their, just a little FYI, if you go to their YouTube page, they also have their Instagram as well as their TikTok location. So you can find them on TikTok, Instagram, and on YouTube. So you can check them out there. What do you guys have coming up? You guys have anything interesting popping, video wise, or some lives or anything?
Well, now that we have our microphones, I actually think they just got delivered on the front porch. We're going to start recording a couple of different episodes on just like our personal stories and experiences. Yeah. So I think we're going to do that. We do our live recap every week, which has been fun for us. Trying to get this guy on camera was so hard. And then the first time I did it, and we had such a great response. And then and now he loves it. Now he's like, he loves to get on and talk about things. And so, yeah, I think we're kind of just seeing where it goes, because I've been wanting to do a podcast for a long time, but the Sister Wives train has been kind of fun to be on. And then we'll probably do a Big Love series, I think, later. We'll rewatch Big Love and do that.
Yeah, because I like Big Love.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'd say I started watching Big Love a little while ago. And some of that, like, to be honest with you, like, there's one of the wives who is outright scary. Like the one that was from the compound. I think she was the second wife. Yeah, she is scary. Like, she horrifies me. Like, I'm like, what? We gotta get rid of this one. Hopefully you messed up. Like, I don't know what you were thinking. But yeah, she is scary. She's a scary
Yeah.
one. But,
Yeah, we watched Big Love. So I don't know if you've watched any of our videos where we've said Big Love was based loosely around my dad and his family.
oh yes, I have heard you say that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which
Yeah.
one is the second wife? Is there a second wife in your family?
So my
Yeah,
mom,
ooh.
no, my mom would be considered like, because the first wife left when I was 2. So my mom's kind of been the first wife forever.
Right.
And when they did the interview with the guy who wrote Big Love, my mom was in the first wife position. So
Right.
but the
Okay.
similarities are all, and then the second wife would be the compound wife. And then, yeah. So there's a lot of similarities in all of that. My dad watched the first episode of Big Love with a bunch of reporters and all of his wives when it first came out. And my mom's going to be embarrassed, but that first sex scene came on, and we were like, "Oh my gosh, what's happening?" And so my dad just instantly turned off the TV, and he's like, "Well, we're not watching that." So, yeah, it was pretty embarrassing. I wish so bad I would have been a fly on that wall when that happened. But then my dad would sneak over here and watch Big Love with us throughout the series.
Oh, okay.
Because none of the wives would allow him to watch it, so he'd sneak over here
In the house.
So yeah, it's hilarious. I love that series. That series will definitely trigger me a little bit though, and give me a little bit of PTSD because some of it's so spot on. And
oh really?
Yeah, it's so accurate. And we would watch it and we would guess which storyline was about who we knew. And so we'd be like, oh, we know that storyline goes to this person, or that storyline goes to this family. So we kind of could guess where
similarities were.
Yeah.
Somebody did
right
research when they put together that series.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So he did the interview with my mom, did you interview with him too? No, my mom didn't, just my dad did. But I mean, we did a lot of interviews when we were younger. So we're in a couple different magazines. Yeah, my family did, my dad did. And so, so I remember doing photo shoots, taking pictures of our family and stuff like that back in the day. So,
okay.
Yeah, so that's a big
so you said your dad was watching it and saw that sex scene. He was like, "Oh, the devil is a lie." Click. Not today, Satan. Bow. You know?
Yeah.
Well, that is crazy. I tell you what, like I can see the first wife. She was actually kind of cool. Like it was a weird situation watching because I didn't get through all of it, so I'm gonna be fair about it. But the first wife I thought was really cool. If anything, I was like the first wife, that was a win. Second wife, complete no. Third wife, she was okay. She needed, she needed some help. But that second wife, like I said, she was a pistol. Like she was a real one. She was scary. Like I don't know. I don't know if your dad had a second wife like that. Woo! Lord have mercy.
Oh, he did, and she
know.
was just like that. And that's where I took the blame because my dad's the one who said, "Oh, Nikki is just like my wife," and I was like, "Oh yeah, she kind of is, huh?" And then my dad went back to that wife and said, "Melanie says you're just like Nikki on." Because everyone's looking at what is their part in the movie. If the show's loosely based around my dad, where do I fit into that? And so it's hilarious. And then I was the jerk for years because I said she was just like Nikki, but she is. So I mean, there's nothing I can do about that. So
but let's be honest, you're not like the first one, and you're surely not the third one.
No.
By the process of elimination, I hate to tell you, you're number 2. Nikki, it is. Yeah, but
so yeah.
I understand why she was insulted, though. I'm not gonna lie to you because that one's a pistol. Nikki's a real one.
Yeah. Oh, and so was my other mom, just like her. So.
Oh, really? Yeah, I couldn't do that. Like I watched that show and I used to say to myself, I was like, I don't know how my man is putting up with it. Like 3 women, I know it's cliche. I couldn't do 3 women, but I couldn't do one Nikki. You know what I mean? Forget the dumb shit. I couldn't do one of them.
Yeah.
So God bless them. Like, you have to have the patience of Job to get through that. Because no, thank you. Hell, please. Yeah, if it was relying on me, you have to have 3 to get to heaven. Hell, please. Yes, I'll take that. With the gasoline side of gasoline draws. Thank you.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Wow. That's awesome, though. I'm glad to hear that. So make sure you guys are for the chat. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. I appreciate it. I know it's kind of long, and I know you guys might be kind of wore out, and I appreciate for sure Notes to Self 444 coming through with Melanie and Corey coming down, hanging out with us. Make sure you guys check out their channel. Like I said, it's a lot of interesting stuff. It's not just the one thing that I like about their channel is that it's not just about sister wife stuff, kind of what Melanie was saying. So it's not just a recap of like the episodes, but you also get a feel for the real life application of how these particular instances and circumstances may appear in real life with real life experiences and real life observations about what they've seen and from what they've known from being in the faith. And it also helps that they know the cast, so I mean, you can't beat that either.
Yeah.
But again, thank you guys so much for hanging out with me. I appreciate it. This was the conversation, my take on reality conversation. Like I said, this is the flagship show, so we'll see how it works out. This actually, speaking of podcasts, these might actually turn into a podcast. I think I might do them in a podcast format. So we'll see how that works out. Like you guys said, the technology is a little new to me, so I just got to figure out how to do it, and we'll have a good time trying to figure it out. So it is what it is. But before I go, I want to make sure I give a huge shout out and thank you to the chat, because you guys were holding it down. I was trying to juggle a lot of balls, so you guys were holding down for me in the chat. But I also most definitely want to give a big thank you to the moderators. I have Carmel Cutie, I have Lizzie B, I have Brittany, not Brittany, in the house holding down for me. Did you guys have any moderators? 'Cause I don't want to miss anybody. Okay. That's all right. Well,
we trusted you guys. Your moderators. That was awesome.
Yeah, they do a great job. They do a great job. Because like I said, the moderators are so important because, while I'm talking, running my mouth 9 times out of 10, nonstop, they're in there actually in the chat holding everything down for me. So I really appreciate the hard work that they put in. So they're awesome. But thank you to everybody. Before we go, let me give the moderators, the chat, as well as our special guests a huge thank you. So let me give you guys a little something.
Thank you.
All right.
I guess our moderator's mom over here.
There you go. You got that in-person moderator with the strong right hand. I got you. Don't mess with Mom Dukes. You have to lay paws on you. But I appreciate you guys for hanging out. Thank you guys so much for chilling with us. Make sure you check out our channels. Hit subscribe on both channels. Ring the bell for notifications so you will be notified when we upload new videos and/or we go live. These guys go live all the time, so you want to make sure that you hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so that way you know when they go live, so you don't miss out on any of the goodness. All right, but thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. That's my take. I'm James, and guess what, y'all? This has been my take on reality. I guess we'll call it my take on reality presents the conversation. So thank you guys so much. Notes to self 444. See.